Hey Lauren, everything's on the go here, just waiting to start the meeting.
Okay, I got a pop-up here. It says the content of this meeting has been sent to a third party and I just press OK on that, Melissa.
Move it, Megan.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay, but something is wrong here.
We're getting some feedback.
Hey, I think I know what it is. Hang on.
Okay, I just pressed that thing that said to the third party, and that's just was to go into the live or to the YouTube.
Yeah, and I just shut off on my end so we don't get that echo. So we are live streaming on YouTube and we start the meeting as soon as Paul gets here. If you don't mind, I'm gonna mute for now.
Okay. Yep, I'm just starting it here in a few minutes. Why? Too cold?
What's that?
Too cold?
Too what?
Cold?
No, I don't think it's too cold, I didn't sleep.
Why?
I don't know, I just couldn't, I fell asleep right away and woke up about close to 1. And then, I mean, I did get up for a short time, I didn't really, wasn't up all night, but I didn't sleep.
Don't, 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 don't.
Okay.
Can I go put D&D on first?
Okay. You're on, Lauren.
Okay. Well, we'll bring this meeting to order at 9:30.
9:34.
Okay, 9:34. Welcome, Cam.
Hi, Lauren.
I'd just like to say in the beginning as well, we got to give our thoughts to, just a minute. I gotta close the door. Sorry about that. There would be a lot of noise coming in. I would just like to say our thoughts should go out to the peelers. Darcy has been in the hospital for a while with a real bad back problem, and Judy fell yesterday and broke her hip, and she's in Red Deer this morning getting surgery. So I just want to make that announcement. I know it was kind of private to them, but also that I think the village of White Sands has to pull together because they're going to be in a mess for a while, and I'm sure they all will, but that's just for the information from them, and hopefully things improve. So is there any additions to the agenda? I have one. I'd like to go in camera. Or closed meeting, and it's to do with, I suppose, Melissa, it would be to do with human resources.
Human resources?
Yeah.
So that would be stopping me. Okay.
Well, related. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any other additions?
No, no.
Okay. So the minutes from the last meeting, Was there anything in there, you folks, when you went through it?
No, it looks fine to me. Same.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't see anything there. So we have to adopt the previous minutes. We need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion for that, to adopt the November 13th meeting minutes.
Okay, seconder. And all in favor? Yeah, thank you. Public hearings, nothing. Delegation, Cam Russell from the RCMP. Cameron, if you want to just take it away, and we'll be listening, because I know there's a lot of stuff there.
I'll take it away already. Yeah, I had a good look at the bylaw that you guys have drafted up. And I think with respect to golf carts, and I think it's a great direction to be going, and I think we're gonna have great success out of it. Just a couple of tiny little things within the bylaw that I thought that might be a little bit easier to read and understand. But again, that's of course gonna be ultimately up to you folks. Have you consulted with insurance companies on the $2 million liability piece? Like, is that going to be sufficient?
Haven't yet.
Okay.
That's the next process.
And the reason that I asked that question is because if you encounter a collision, which you covered off here, that needs to be reported to the village. But if there's a collision between a vehicle, like a truck and a golf cart, you know, that could become a little bit more problematic with regards to injury and liability and that sort of thing, because it's not really the damage that could be done between a truck and a golf cart, it could be, you know, catastrophic, to be quite honest, even at those speeds, right? So, you know, that it doesn't only cover the, you know, the repair of the vehicles, it also covers the disability of the operator or something like that, if there's anything that happens. So I just wanted to make sure that the village has been thinking about that, just a recommendation.
Was that 2 million a recommendation by the province? Was that where we got that number?
That's what we were finding in most of the bylaws, because it isn't anything in the regulation itself, but
I think that's what Lacombe was doing, Lacombe County was doing.
yes.
And I just wanted to know if anybody reached out to an actual insurance company to see if
The
that's.
province had attempted to and tried to get the Canadian insurance, whatever the bureau, to give a ruling on it, and they didn't get anything really positive.
Okay.
They didn't get a consensus or this is how it should be. That was what the meeting, that was what they said at the meeting.
Yeah,
So I think they basically said you should have insurance, but they didn't clarify what that limit was, I don't think.
Yeah, that was a question that I had too, of understanding exactly what that is, and you and I were talking about that, Cam. Is this a separate policy that they have on their golf cart, or is this covered under their home
It's
insurance?
under their home
It's under
insurance.
insurance,
is
and
what
that's
it
the
is.
thing, so I mean,
Yeah.
if the golf cart's being operated lawfully according to bylaw, then I need to say that it should be, but at the same time, it'd just be a good idea to make sure that you're, all the people that are gonna, you know, adopt this bylaw and go with the licensing system are fully involved and fully aware, that's all.
Yeah, and I think probably what happened there, what Danny's talking about, that was at our Summer Village Association meeting, and that was a problem with it as well from other summer villages. But they said also that some of the insurance companies across Canada are hands off on it, and other ones they're approaching to see how it's going to be managed. So I think in our case, we can approach our insurance company and see what they say. And I think that is a very valid point, because people can really get in trouble if they don't have enough insurance. So maybe, Melissa, we can check out our insurance. And they handle a lot of summer villages, so I'm sure they've already been contacted.
And we kind of looked at, sometimes municipal marinas do the same type of approach when it comes to a boat in their marina stall. So that's why this was kind of follow that kind of route, but we'll double check with our insurance company just to verify that, because they are municipal roads.
Yeah,
Yep.
and because everybody has their own insurance, because it's privatized insurance and all that,
Yes,
it could be a different answer from whichever company you talk to, so.
It would be worthwhile just to pick 2 or 3 large and, private insurers and just phone them and say like, hey, if you had a client, could you get a golf cart addition to their thing for?
I think it's more for us to protect on our side,
And
to
there's that
protect
too.
with our insurance.
Well-
And then it would be the onus is on the individuals to make
Well,
sure their insurance will.
yeah, but
They won't be able to register.
I don't really want to set people up to be confused when they get this
Yeah.
file on. They say, okay, well, I phoned my insurance company and the insurance company said, what? That's,
And
it's
that's
not
not
gonna do it.
because this is all new to the province, right? So the
Yeah.
insurance companies probably haven't heard about this yet. Or you don't think. So just something to think about. I hate to open up a big animal because I want this to go forward.
And I think that should be something that when you get to that bylaw, maybe add it in resolution that we'll investigate to our insurance company. And then we can advise at the next meeting so that everybody's well aware.
Yeah. Cool. One of the pieces that's really picky, but where it states here, without being the holder of valid operator's license or a driver's license issued pursuant to the act, I would just simplify that and say they must be 14 years of age and hold valid Alberta's operator's license between class 1 and 7. That would
Okay.
you just take out the extra.
Yeah.
The piece so there's no confusion. And do you want it to be valid Alberta's Alberta operator license, or does it matter if they come visit from BC? Is that sufficient?
I don't think you have to recognize that as a provincial. We want people to have a basic understanding of the rules of the road. So if your nephew or niece comes and they're driving in from Ontario,
And that's what,
as long as they have, so I don't think we need to specify that it's a valid Alberta driver's license. It needs to be a valid license,
Valid operators.
operator's license, yes.
between class 1 and 7.
So then if we have,
Between class 1 and 7.
is one, okay, can I
One is a
clarify?
big
Is
truck.
1 in 7 across Canada?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
Okay,
between class
that's
1.
all I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure is because then that opens it right.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go from valid class 7 to 1.
Yeah.
Operator
Or 1 to
license.
7.
On the 7.
Okay.
Okay. And then with regards to the report, collision report, so if there is an incident, what is that going to be? Exactly, like what? Because if it's with a vehicle, they will have to report it to police. If the damage is over $5,000, combined damage is over $5,000. If it's between 2 golf carts, that's not going to apply as per the Traffic Safety Act, so there's no requirement to report that to the police unless there's, serious injury, fatality, God forbid that happens. But what is the village gonna do as far as just take information and hold it as a record, or?
Because we have to do reporting to the province, that's why we kind of stipulated it didn't really matter. We wanted the reporting because we have to report.
Okay.
So we thought about, okay, maybe you don't have to report to us if it's under 5,000, but then we started thinking, well, how do we collect the data that the province wants us to report?
They want even a little, so they drove off the road and hit a tree.
Right.
They want that. They want that.
And they will in the preliminary stages.
As a pilot.
Sure.
Yeah, so because we're beholden to that, we have to get that information. And I think, and then if we come across an incident report that meets those criteria, injury, fatality, or over 5,000 with the vehicle, then obviously that would have to be, it would be up to them to report that to police.
Right, yeah.
And that was kind of how we kind of worded it, if we need to clarify it a little better, but we still wanted them to make sure they're reporting to us, because even if you damage and hit a tree, we need to know because we have to report to the province.
Okay, that was just my question. Make sure.
And I think probably a lot of that is because of it's a pilot project for 5 years, they want to see what's going on. And if maybe they would make some changes to it or else just pull the whole thing after the 5 years, I have no idea. I think the provincial government is just want to monitor what is the implication of doing this thing. And that's why they want the reports back. So we have to do our due diligence and send it back to the department or the transportation or whoever's in charge there.
Okay. So that's good. Okay, and then I was also thinking about, with regards to, you know, violation tags and tickets and that sort of thing. So we have the ability as police officers to either issue a bylaw ticket or a provincial parking violation ticket. And I'm sure you're all aware, if you do a bylaw ticket, then it's up to the village to prosecute that, which means hire a lawyer so that they bring it to see it's reported. Did you guys know that?
I had a question on what's the difference between a tag and a ticket, so, okay, so this helps to clarify.
Yeah, that's a violation tag would be considered a bylaw ticket opposed to a violation ticket, which is a provincial ticket, different format. And part two, what that means is that it can go to, it can actually go to a warrant. So it comes to jeopardy for the recipient.
So how would you decide whether you're going to issue a tag or a ticket, or is that looking for directions from us on?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll have the ability to use common sense and that sort of thing to determine whether the violator needs to be ticketed. Quite often that depends on their attitude at the side of the road and how they deal with us. But yeah, that's up to the officer who's dealing with the matter at the time. Now, if the village is very strong about, you know, let's educate for the first year or two or whatever, let's make sure everybody's aware of the rules and make sure that they're in the know. That's fine. We can do that too. We're here to serve you folks. So, you know, at the end of the day, one direction to come. Now, that's not to say that if you run across somebody that's drooling, drunk, and cause a problem.
Yeah,
But you know, for the run-of-the-mill family that's out there using a golf cart, and, you know, they have kids going down to take the garbage when they're 10 and 11 years old, well, it's not allowed, can't do that. You know,
Yeah.
Educate. And I'm sure it'll go through the village like wildfire. I'm sure it's put in place. I'm sure there's lots of people that already know what's happening. So.
I think the education and then escalation thereof after.
So much fun.
Yeah, time or repeat or, you know,
Repeats a big one.
repeat, you know, if they blatantly refuse to kind of follow the rules, then that's an escalation.
That's right. So part of that escalation that I didn't see in here was the ability for us to tow that golf cart. So we have a repeat offender, if you will, that refuses to abide by the licensing system that's set out by the village or you know, occupants, time of day, whichever, that continues to happen. We get complaints about yourself and sees it, so whatever, then we can tow it at their expense.
You can.
Yes.
Yes, you would have to add that in there because I've seen that clause in transportation bylaws.
Yeah.
At the owner's
At
expense.
the owner's expense.
So that would be one good clause or amendment to add to this.
100%.
Melissa,
Yeah,
we're, and I'm sure it's on the feed too, the audio for Cameron speaking is not great.
Oh, I can speak up.
yes,
might be-
please.
It might be the way you're facing towards the microphone, I'm not sure.
Where's the microphone?
Up
It's
there.
up there.
Okay.
My apologies, Lauren. I'll speak up so you can hear me better.
Well, I get your drift, but I'm worried about the public. If there's something muffled there, then there will be some concerns and questions.
Okay,
I'll just ask you to increase.
Yeah, I will, for sure.
so we'll put a clause about totally at owner's expense, potential or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's important to have there. Yeah, that's an escalation. And as for the fine amounts and that sort of thing, I think that's right along the line with what's out there now, so I don't see there to be an issue.
One question that I had that'd be good to ask while you're here is we refer to them as highways through this
Yes.
document. Is that necessary? That to me, that's very confusing.
All roadways in the province that you drive on are considered highways, whether it's urban or municipal, they're called highways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you go on the Alberta government site, on their guidelines for it, they have a sample one and it uses roadways in their sample one, but
Is that word interchangeable or it needs to be highways?
It needs
Because
to
it's
be
under,
highways.
under the Highways Act.
Okay, yeah, it needs to be highways.
Yeah, and the reason is, just so you're aware, is that all the roads within the municipality are registered, and to close any portion of a road, we must have permission through
Yep.
Alberta Transportation.
And they are full-time.
Maybe we can just make sure that's very clear in the word definitions. We can look at it and like go through, but just to make sure that. Because when I first read that and I thought, well, the road in front of my place is not a highway.
Yeah.
You know?
I know, but we pulled the definitions as much as we could from the definition areas of the government, because they're clear on their definitions, but we can always tweak.
Yeah, 'cause
Okay,
you have your definitions as a designated highway, but you could add another one and put the highway that defined by province is.
Yeah,
Is that-
and then just, you can even just say, to be clear, every road within the village is
Yeah.
a designated
Is
highway.
considered a highway, yeah.
Yeah, and Paul, it has to be a registered road with the province. So Danny was talking to me about that as well, because I was wondering about the boat launch, where you have boat access to the boat launch, for example. That's not a registered road.
Oh, okay, yeah, I noticed on the map that wasn't covered for.
And
Yeah.
beach access.
And the beach accesses, so what they're classified as, if you were to go onto the map of the village, where the shop is and the hall is and the dumpsters and all, there's no registered road in there. It's a road that's on MR, and that's allowed through the MGA, but they're not registered. It's same with the accesses down to the beach.
which plays havoc when we're doing something like this, because if it's MR, then we have to decide how we're dealing with that. And if you say that they can drive on MR, then you're opening up all your MR.
Yeah.
So we had a bit of a
I,
discussion over that until it's dedicated as a roadway, we kind of say.
I like the idea of not allowing the golf carts on the beach accesses, but you know, the way it's written here, they can't drive to the parking at the boat launch.
Well, that, a large part of why they use golf carts is to get their toys to the beach, and they go down to the beach access, turn around in the cul-de-sac, unload all their stuff, and then go up and park.
Oh,
So they do that. That's the main use I've seen of those golf carts, is to haul their toys to the
Yes.
beach.
right.
People that live on the beach don't have that issue.
The only other thing is with golf carts, just to be aware, that's why I decided I'm not putting in the boat launch areas, because you cannot use a golf cart for towing.
No.
So that kind of solved that issue of, well, I don't have to worry about that part because can't tow.
I think they still want to drive down there and use the boat launch as a beach access. You could,
They could,
yeah.
I
I
think
think
like,
we'll tread that as our education
Yeah.
and figure how to,
I think just as dealing with the roadways for this point is probably the most effective. I don't know if it's
Yeah, okay.
too-
Well, you know, I think if you send the bylaw to the province and you designated that they could go down to the beach accesses as well as down at the boat launch, you're gonna get kickback because it's not registered. It would depend on who's looking at the map up in Edmonton at transportation. But the regulations that they put out definitely says registered roads, and they aren't. And I guess
And
the
you
other
have-
part of the other part about that is that the golf carts, like they would never go down the one at by your place, Paul, at the end of Front Street. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the other, you know, down by the hall, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they would use the golf carts to go down there. But what it also does for the village as a whole and for emergency services is get cars off the road parking to go down to the beach. So that's quite a big deal, because sometimes in between myself and Danny, there could be maybe 10 or 15 carts down there, Dan, at least.
Yeah, it's full, the parking gets full. And so by
Yes.
allowing golf carts, it does alleviate some of that, because they don't have to bring their cars down, they can just bring the golf cart.
Correct, and then we have to
And then we
be
could-
careful with the public lands part and the license we have. If they go too far into that area, we could get ourselves in more hot
Yeah.
water.
For sure.
So people typically park their golf carts down?
Yeah. They do,
Okay.
there's usually 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and then if it gets too crowded, then they'll, as long as they don't restrict the bubble, it's usually policed, but not policed, it's usually,
Man,
you know, managed quite efficiently, it's.
And we
Yeah.
could have more signage is a better thing. I'm saying if you want it as a drop-off area, but you can't park. Little things like that, those are all tweaks that we can do with signage.
I think I would do that separately, you know, because I think that complicates this a little.
Yes.
We can do some small
Yeah, I
signage.
agree, 100%, and I think, we shouldn't poke the skunk.
Yeah,
Leave it alone.
yeah, I agree. Okay,
get that in the minutes as a resolution.
anything
We're
else?
getting on the right track.
No, from what I've read there, the rest is very good, and I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's gonna be a great positive, change to the village for sure. Cause it's been very frustrating for us, like we want everybody to be happy and we have to turn a blind eye quite often to things like this and it's, you know, it's not really productive, you know?
Yeah.
So now we've got some rules to follow, which is good.
Yeah,
And then I will forward you our next one, which will include OHVs, so we can get some review and feedback from you and before I bring it to council with any recommendation.
Cool, very good. Very good.
I think, well, we have that on the agenda, the golf cart thing, but I think this is gonna erase that part, but some of it. I also was wondering, Cam, what would you, we've been talking about just making it for a White Sands ratepayers only to be registered in the village of White Sands. I think that is a good idea, as far as I'm concerned anyway, but it's gonna be the same like Roshan Sands. You can't register, if you wanna drive a golf cart from White Sands to Roshan Sands, for example, and some people do that in the summer because they can get through that road that's gated. You're kind of taking your, that's completely out of our jurisdiction. So I'm thinking that you may end up with a problem with someone out of the municipality that wants to register with us, and I don't think that's right.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think that's gonna become a bit of a point of contention for sure. I do know that, Roshan Sands is coming up with a very similar bylaw, and I'm sure that the county will follow suit shortly here. I know they haven't started working on it yet, but they will be, I think, in the new year. So perhaps, I mean, it depends on how stringent and strict you want to get with your bylaws, but perhaps there could be an MOU put into place where, you know, somebody that's registered or licensed in Roshan Sands can travel through the county, provided the county has that bylaw in place and allows it through the White Sands, and there won't be any serious repercussions. Now, I don't know, that'll be up to you. They still have to follow the same rules.
Which means they have to lower their speed limit on that section of road.
I was just gonna say it because you can't do it on more than a 50 km/h.
Correct, so it gets very convoluted
Sure.
and could become an issue.
And there's just simply gonna be places where they won't be able to use them and
Yeah.
that's gonna restrict them but that's where we gotta kind of, throw our hands up and say it is what it is.
I think I'd rather leave it status quo that, you know, you can't legally drive your golf carts between the villages because you do have to go on an 80 km/h stretch of road that's not permanent
And if
underneath.
that changes, we can look at an MOU.
Yeah,
I think that's,
and I think lowering that speed limit to 50 would annoy a lot of people.
yeah,
But I think the nice thing is that we're working on the off-highway vehicles, that's a whole different ballgame because the county does have
Yep.
off-highways, so you're gonna have a bit of restriction on one, but you're gonna have some balance with the next.
Yep.
So I think we can't fix everything, we can only do what we can.
And there's gonna be misinterpretation for sure by our
Yes.
users and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
but that's where the education piece comes from. And That's all, it's up to all of us to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that, Cam, and we always put out newsletters, especially with something like this, and explain and put it on the website so that they can look at the rules and do whatever. So they're, you know, the public, the White Sands ratepayers or whatever are gonna have to realize that there's rules that go along with the whole program here. It's not just now you can do it. So that's our job now to educate as well when it gets finally done. And that's what we're intending on doing.
And it currently reads as must have a permit from the Summer Village of White Sands.
And we will be pushing that, and we will be really pushing that out with lots of education. The first year will always be the toughest year for all of us.
100%.
Yeah, and then it's just like the docks and the boat lifts and stuff. The first year was brutal. The next year became a bit easier. And then everybody, why? We just,
Nobody
And
likes
education.
change.
that's right.
Nobody likes change, and,
Yeah.
and this is change, but it isn't because it's been going on for years. It's just now there's some rules that they need to follow in order to do it legally.
This is a positive
It is, it
change
is.
than a negative, because before there was no way to deal with it.
Yeah.
It was just, you couldn't, and everybody was not,
Lawful.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that said, I think is that all you need from me, or?
Yeah, I've got all your reports in here. Does council have any questions on Pam's reports that he provided?
No, I think it's pretty clear cut, and Cam, we really appreciate your help with this kind of thing, because sometimes even Alberta Transportation misses things that are really should be there. So your clarification is really helpful for the village. Thank you.
Oh, of course, anytime.
I just had a couple things I was just curious about as I read through it. I wouldn't mind just asking while you're here. Like when I look through your crime statute, it's really interesting. Yeah, it talks about Liquor Act, Cannabis Act, Mental Health Act, and then with Mental Health Act having like huge numbers compared to the other acts. So I was just wondering what sort of things are crime stats collected for the Mental Health Act.
Wouldn't call them crime stats more than just stats, but mental health has become more and more prevalent in our communities, all communities, not just Stellar by any means. But people that struggle with their mental health, and quite often, unfortunately, addiction plays into a part of that, because when they start using, whether it's alcohol or illicit drugs, it can make that mental health issue way more pronounced.
Okay.
Therefore, we get called and we get involved. We do have designated units in RCMP now. We are served under Drum Heller. It's called an RPAT unit, and it's a police officer that works along with a psych nurse. So when we have somebody that's making concerning comments, or the family's worried about their mental health or something like that, they can come and actually do a proper assessment. Whereas up until, and that one just opened up here a few months ago. Up until then, we're police officers, we're not trained in mental health, and we don't know really what's going on. We have a certain set of criteria that would need to be met, and for us to apprehend them under the Mental Health Act and then transport them to Pinoca, or a designated facility is what it's called, to be assessed by a mental health professional. And it's becoming more and more prevalent, and yeah, we tend to cover our butt, because if we don't want to be the one to make the wrong decision, and we're not at all experts in the field. So we apprehend them, take them to Pinoca, where they can be assessed by a proper team.
Okay.
And yes, the numbers have come up exponentially since in the 22 years that I've been doing this job. The Mental Health Act has been increasing every year. Yeah, and it's part and parcel with mental health issues, but along with addiction.
And I'm sure you see that everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah, it's not just here.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
There's also like stats for the Stettler municipal detachment and stats for the Stettler provincial detachment.
Yes.
There's not two different RCMP
No.
offices, but is this that like within town and out of town? Is that really what that is?
Yeah, it's municipal opposed to rural, basically.
Okay.
That's all that is, yeah.
Okay.
So we can divide it and see a little bit more clear how much is going on in town opposed to out of town.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And the municipalities are always very, very interested in that, because the amount of officers that are assigned to the municipal collator is what it's called, is much larger than what's assigned to the rural collator. So they feel like if there's an equal amount of stats in the rural area opposed to the municipal area, well, why are we paying for so many officers? Why isn't it so? It's a budgetary thing, right? Which I totally understand, but that's where it becomes more interesting.
Right. Okay.
Behind the lines, but. But I mean, part and parcel with what I sent out to you guys there, those stats are that they can change with 2 or 3
Yeah.
calls depending on what's going on, right? And 2 or 3 people that are in the area. It's amazing what one person that's high on meth can do in 24 hours. It's actually it's disgusting, but
Yeah.
either way, that kind of stuff does come and go. But currently, we've been putting the pressure on the people that need pressure so that we keep them under wraps or putting that pressure on when they leave the area. And it's now somebody else's problem, I know, but at least it's not our problem. So,
You can only do what you can do.
That's right.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very frustrating. I mean, we combat this daily with charging somebody with they're running from us. They're causing a huge hindrance on the highway because they're in a pursuit with us. We know who they are, and all kinds of threats and assault police officer kind of charges. There, I have an example of yesterday. There was one that came to court and they just withdrew the whole thing. And there's no explanation from the Crown prosecutor as to why that is. They just decided that they're too busy that day, perhaps. And I hate to say it, but that's quite often what the case is, that they triage things and say, well, this one's not as important as this one, so I'm just going to withdraw this one.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating.
That would be, yeah.
It's tough to keep our officers engaged and motivated when that kind of stuff happens. I mean,
Unsupported.
we're supposed to have just the best package push forward, and then whatever happens, but it's very difficult to not take that personally sometimes. So, but that's
And then-
unfortunate.
Yeah, and then you also gotta understand, because I've known a few officers in my time, the work and the documentation you have to do to present it to the court is just so time consuming, and then you're just getting blown off. And that's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, but I don't know what the answer is. If I had that, I guess I'd be making more money, but perhaps one day come up with a solution.
I never think you're gonna
Don't
make
hold your breath. Don't hold your breath.
But I can say for sure that Stettler and the surrounding area in Stettler County and stuff is a great place to live. I mean, there really isn't much of a crime base here, and like I said, when there is that, we definitely take our the concerns seriously and we address them. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Cam, and I'm sure you're not interested in staying for the rest of the meeting, so I guess.
Not that I'm not interested, but I got other things to do. So. But thank you for having me once again, and definitely when you do revamp things, I'd be happy to come back or just meet with you, whichever.
I will forward things off prior to anything going to the minister for their final approval.
Cool, okay.
Thanks.
Right on. My door's always open, so give me a call if you need to. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right, thanks,
Thanks.
folks. Thank you.
Thank
Have a good day. Drive safe.
Okay, good discussion, and it's very good for us to get that information right from the horse's mouth, that's for sure. So I think we've gone through the golf cart pretty well. I think my question would be, what about public input? So if we do a
Can
first
we-
reading.
Can I get a bit,
Okay,
sorry. Now that Mr. Sergeant Cam Russell has withdrawn, do you want to accept his
Report.
report as presented and then move into your next discussion?
Yes.
Please.
yeah,
Move.
all in favor?
So who motioned it?
I did.
Andrew, I'll second. If you need to, I don't, does everything need to be seconded?
No.
Okay.
Move to
Why don't you
accept
send me
this
the
report as presented.
I did have a few other details on the golf cart bylaw that I wanted to go through as well before we move on from that.
You are going
Okay.
right in.
Okay. So we don't, and it talks about there, there's the registration process and there's fees for the registration, but the details are not in here. So does that still need to be developed or?
Yes, that would be, the reason even the other bylaws didn't have it all listed in there because they just kind of summarized that there would be details because for one, the fee amount is a discussion with you guys because it has to go into the fees for service bylaw. And so because we can't collect fees unless it's in a fees for service bylaw.
Right, okay.
So, but the discussion on what you're thinking the amount. Have at her right now, cause it's going to be coming up and it's kind of gonna affect your budgets, right?
Do we know what other municipalities are charging for fees or what?
We,
Specifically Roshan, if they're implementing a very similar bylaw here?
well, we had that discussion because we looked and it ranges, one had it at 60, one had it at 100. We thought, how do we fit in the middle? So we were thinking somewhere, because of the time and the cost that we're gonna have to implement this. Like our signage right now, we got a guesstimate, could be a little bit more. How do you wanna recoup it depending on how many are gonna register? So 100 would mean 13 registered, you'd have all your costs paid for, right? If you went 70, 75, you'll need more people registered, but I don't have the data on how many there are.
That's, and that's just to recover a year one costs. We don't have those signage costs going forward.
That's right, we can have more signage costs as we move forward through the years, we just don't know.
Well, you have some, you have.
Well, plus there's administration to follow up with the insurance, to issue the permit, to
Collect
permit.
everything.
And you have to have some
permit.
sort of permit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So I mean, there are some costs to this and.
Yeah.
Annually, yes.
directionally $100 seems high, and that's like higher than I pay, I think, to get my driver's license renewed each year and all that.
So this is an annual permit fee
Yes, because they'll have to make sure they provide us the insurance
each year.
every
This has to
year
be valid.
to be able to get the authorization to
Yeah,
have it. So yeah, the 60 from what I'm getting when I'm doing now the transportation and the OHV, 60 is what you pay for your OHV registration.
I think
Yeah.
that's,
it seems reasonable.
That's
I
where
think
that
that's
came
reasonable.
from.
I want to be conscious of not appearing like we're using this as a
yeah,
cap.
we're not trying to generate excess funds. We want it to generate the funds to pay for the program. And we don't want it to be onerous that people are going to be avoiding it either.
Yeah,
Right,
Oh, that's $100, ooh, that's too much, so, and then they're gonna try to sneak under the radar. I would prefer to make this reasonable.
and I think when I think about it with the docks and mooring and that registration, we are charging $50. $60, something like that, so that's why I'm saying this is good for you guys to have the thought process, because we're gonna have to bring this back in a fees for service bylaw. And maybe the two of them, because they are very. We're gonna do the administrative work, we gotta pull it. We've already figured out that we'll try some cost savings the first year we'll do. Registration will be a different color tag, we'll do it on and laminate it, so. We're gonna try and find some efficiencies and see how it works the first year. We don't wanna get
And
into spending too much money because then it's not gonna be cost effective.
Yes, and the thing is too, I think we have to make sure that it is like the mooring and docking, because user pay is what this is about. If you had a golf cart and you want to register it, you're gonna have to pay for the administration, and I don't think the village should not be spending money on just, let's say, not the majority of the ratepayers. Like I really think the mooring and docking, for example, how many did you get there? The RV folks, how many are there? But it's user pay, and it has to not take away from the revenues of the village, and we got to balance that.
And you also have to remember that OHVs, you also have to pay for insurance for an OHV.
Yeah.
The golf cart won't have that, so I think the balance with the CAO promotion was also going to present to that council was we were thinking around the 70.
Okay. I can live with that.
It's 60.
Melissa, I don't know what, I think that 50 for the mooring and docking is low. Do you have that?
I think that was something that we were gonna talk about during budget process and bring some of those recommendations, cause that'll,
Yeah, we can review all those.
Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. Okay. Was there any more questions on the golf cart issue?
Yeah, so we've already talked about the insurance stuff and I would like to have a better sense on what we are obligating people to do and the reasonableness of that request before we put that out there. To what you said there, Lauren, about public input, and I was wondering the same thing, like, is this something that as a drafter, I don't remember how all the rules work at first, second, and third readings, but at some point, I think it would be reasonable to fire this out for public input and comments and all that.
so what you could do is you can not do any readings and seek public consultation first. Or you can do first reading, which then puts it kind of in play. And then send it up for public consultation prior to second reading, so if there's any amendments.
Okay,
I think that's,
You second, you will send it to the minister.
in the past, that would be the best thing to do, in my experience anyway. And I think probably that the suggestions from CAM and the ones from also council that you have documented today should be put into the document before we do first reading. Like that's we can do it in January. And we'll still have time, but we want to kind of hit so it's going to be legal for the summertime. So we can even call a special meeting. Well, January meeting is the second or third Wednesday, isn't it?
isn't it? Yeah.
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 And you have to remember, our bylaws are kind of similar, it's the same way as the government.
Yeah,
That's
they
it.
have to follow the basics.
Yeah, usually if they've done some consultation, they create the draft. They do a first reading so that they can seek more consultation prior and any amendments. Amendments can happen right up until that final reading.
Okay,
I think we have enough here to do a first reading that then would go out to for public and then come back, and that would then modify, and then the second reading, at which point it gets sent to the province.
Correct.
okay.
And
So-
then we have to wait for the province to respond before we can do the
So-
third.
Yeah, because they may have amendment
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, so what we're talking about then, we'll give all our inputs on this draft, come back at that January meeting, we'll do our first reading.
But I was suggesting that we do our first reading now because we have the basics and then we go out, but I mean, I'm good.
And then I can start amending with Cam's stuff and finish some, and then see what the public is looking at too.
Yeah.
So it's done in like a two-fold, I see what you're saying, but it can be done either way.
Okay, well,
But you actually have to have the document. Really, you got to be careful here because the additions and the changes should be done before you give first reading in print. You know what I'm talking about? Because if we miss something that has been talked about today, that would not be very good.
yeah, I
That's
think,
why you never wanna proceed with all your readings in one shot.
Yeah.
Never, ever,
Fair.
yeah, I think, notwithstanding what Dan's saying, I think, like Lauren said, we do have time on this, so if we can get the first reading in January, that's still giving us time to potentially get this in place before springtime.
Mhm.
Just a couple of other comments that I had, so, in the definitions for designated highway, I'd like to add a sentence, to be clear. or to clarify, you know, all the roads in White Sands are designated highways.
Yeah, that's important, Paul, because it's really kind of confusing for people. Another thing that is, that we could do is have Melissa do all the changes and then just circulate it by email to each council member before the January meeting, before the package goes out for the agenda, if it's possible. I'm sure with the additions, Melissa, you can get it done before Christmas or whatever, and just email it out to us so we can digest it and make sure nothing was missed. I think that would be fairly, as long as we keep it to ourselves, you know, like, and then.
But are you guys getting public consultation with, because we can set it up on the website for feedback, and we will make sure the actual act is there. And what you're reviewing is a bylaw in relation to that act, so that we can start the process and see what the feedback from people. We can't fix everything.
I think we'd have to do that after the first reading, though. We couldn't go to public, there's no point in going to the public consultation until we have something that's
Okay,
fairly rough for them.
Okay.
You know,
I agree, Dan. That's what I'm thinking. Like you have to have a document that's been readjusted from what's in the minutes now.
Yeah.
And then.
And would you include the permit being $70 annual in there? I think that people need to see that there is a cost for that permit.
so you want the.
I think it's a proposed, you know, whether we call it proposed or whether we put it in there, we can always adjust the fee up or down at a later point. But I think the fee should be in there, no? Or-
I can list it in there, it won't, yeah.
I mean, it won't be
It has to be-
official until
consolidated.
we review the rates of everything.
Yes.
Yeah,
fees
for
and
the budget,
services.
fees and services,
Yeah,
but at least it's in there, this is the proposed bylaw that they're getting feedback on. And we're under that proposed bylaw, this is the fee that would be associated, I think it's very, I think we wanna give them as much information about and as close to the final draft as we can.
Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that.
I agree, Danny, because if you don't, then the transparency has to be there. And
Yes.
it's gotta be done that way, in my opinion. Also, Melissa, I don't know, it's still in my head. I got a mooring and docking permit. But
yeah,
I'm not sure the price of that. Are you able to look that up? Is that too much of a bother right now?
I will bring that one back in January. For you guys
Okay.
to re-review.
Okay,
It is hard for me to bring when we're on this topic, so it would be easier to say, okay, I've got a note and bring back in January.
Well, if we include,
Talk some more.
if we include it in the public consultation, I'm sure we'll get feedback of saying it's either too high or too low. But at least you'll have it in there that you can then get that feedback as opposed to slipping it in later at a higher rate or, oh, that's way too high or way too low.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
this way they can then give that feedback on it.
yeah, and you'll probably get both.
And you'll probably get both.
Yeah,
And
then
that's-
you're gonna get it right if you get both feedbacks.
And I can get some rationale when I'm like.
Yeah.
Because we do know registration is $60 on OHV, then you gotta pay your insurance on top of that, so. Those are little things that we can pull into the consultation part of it and ask them, what's your thoughts?
Okay, maybe, I don't know if we fully need to justify it, but we could just say
I
it's,
would
I'm good with that.
It's
At least present this.
it's intended to be a cost neutral amount, you know, you could just say that. Okay, I had just a few comments on section 4, which is the operation restriction for golf carts. And I just found, as I went through it, I just found that the wording a little bit confusing, and I think it can be cleaned up a bit. You know, for example, if you're looking at it right now, points D and E, it talks about on a designated highway, if they're less than 14 years old. We already have on point A that,
They
or
can't-
B, that has to be a designated highway. I kind of read that and I thought, okay, so if you're less than 14 years old, make sure you're operating it not on the roadway. You know, like,
Okay,
I would say,
Yeah.
okay, so I would just say, you know,
D and
point
E
two
needs
B,
clarity,
if they're less than 14 years old, period, you've already got
yeah,
on a designated way, so you can't do it. D, if they're just 14E during nighttime. And the 14-year-olds might already be covered because you need to have a class 1 to 7 license, so nobody under 14 is gonna have it, so maybe we can
Just
leave that
remove it.
out.
Yeah, need clarity or remove.
Yeah,
Remove, what is that called, redundancies.
yeah, and points I and K, both to me say the same thing about you can't tow, so I don't know if you need both. So just that one particular section, I thought just can be reread and maybe edited and clarified.
Yeah, no, that's good, this is what I need, because
Okay.
we tried to walk through it as much, like, yeah. And sometimes it just gets all out.
And we already talked about the insurance, I just like to,
Yeah, and then check on insurance, check on insurance.
yeah, and I don't know, I think it'd be reasonable just to call a few big insurance companies and just say, is this something you can add to a typical homeowner's policy? Just, I don't know, or I could even phone my insurance and say, I'm not adding it, but I just want.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can, yeah, I think we should do, just find out, there's two things. What does our insurance think about it?
That's, yeah,
And then
Yeah.
from a resident's perspective, how onerous is it and how expensive is it to get 2 million liability on your golf cart use on these roads?
Yeah,
That's the two
Yeah.
questions we need to answer.
and that $2 million is you said that's a common amount that we're seeing?
yeah,
Yes.
and that's what they use for marinas too, because I had that conversation and nobody has a problem with that.
Okay,
Because they got liability from the boat, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same idea. I guess my concern is when I start changing my hat from the administrative, now I have to go to a personal level and call about home insurance, and I feel gets a little convoluted in what my job is. Like everybody's insurance is different. There's so many different insurance providers and how they have their home insurance. So I'm thinking as long as I can get clarity through our insurance company.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would be.
Yeah,
I
I think, I do agree with that, that we have to protect the village. And as far as the people that have them, it's kind of like the user pay. You contact your insurance company. I already did because I bought a golf cart. And it's easy peasy. There's extra fees for some, and then it's just like adding a boat. Or like it's not provincially registered, but it's like adding a piece of equipment that you would want to insure and make sure it's on. For example, a diamond ring that's $40,000 or whatever. It's the same. Put it on a rider, and then your fees, whatever they are.
Okay.
So when we're asking for 2 million, what happens if a homeowner comes up or a resident comes up and says, I have 2 million on my home insurance? We still have to see that the golf cart is on there.
It is going to be part of the registration that they must attach something in writing from their insurance company.
That says
saying
their
that-
golf cart is included.
Yes.
So there has to have the word golf cart included,
Yes,
because otherwise I would just say my home insurance covers that.
we will be saying we will not accept the application unless we have a letter from your insurance company or a
Saying
copy of the policy that states that that's the
Listen.
one.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
and that
agree.
will have to be done annually because the policies can
Right.
get wrong.
that's why the
Okay,
And that actually, that came right from the province, so we can't play around with that part.
No.
you know.
okay. And yeah, so what did we resolve as a plan? We don't want to poke the skunk. So we're not going to address the beach accesses or the boat launch loop.
Unless you want to designate them as official roadways, which could be a discussion.
Right. Okay, so we're kind of back to, for this current season, we basically be turning a blind eye when people are driving their golf carts down to the loops and all that, so it's.
I think
Well,
let's assess it and see if it is an issue, or because they're not allowed to tow, this is all gonna be new. And I think that's gonna be the key is you can't tow.
Yeah.
So going down to the boat launch, it is pretty rocky down that way if you wanna go along the beach going back towards the village.
Yeah.
It,
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
people, maybe it'll be less, but you know, we talk about people just cruising around.
Yeah.
So people might just go for a cruise down to the boat launch, cruise to Gazebo Hill, you know. There's nothing stopping people from using golf carts for, you know, just driving around the village if they're within,
yeah,
you know, if they got their operator's license and all that. So,
Gazebo Hill though is a parking lot area, so that's fine.
yeah,
That's
also,
part of the road?
Well, it's a designated parking area, so we're gonna be fine with that, because,
right, but so is the boat launch, but the boat launch road they can't use. The boat launch is a designated parking area too, but.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's on
I don't-
MR. The mapping on the, that Melissa did, where there's the green areas, the go areas, that's the only part that's, them are the roads that are registered with the province. The
Yeah,
other
I-
is taken care of because in the Municipal Government Act, there's a clause in there that says you can have roads on municipal reserve. And it doesn't specify that they have to be registered.
Okay,
so we're playing a bit,
yeah,
but I think first year is going to be assessing all of this as
Okay.
it goes, and if we gotta amend things and fix them out, we can do more of that.
yeah, I think I'm okay with that. I know I'm just nitpicking a little bit because, you know, we're doing this to remove gray areas.
Yeah.
And we're still leaving some gray areas.
Unfortunately, I don't have all the gray areas.
Yeah, I think that's acceptable.
Okay,
I think the main message here from the province is that it's been lobbied for years. They put out the document as a 5-year pilot project, but also for the Summer Village, the advantage for the village is now it's regulated, so we're not endangering children anymore. And that is the thing that this legislation has changed, is that we're now making it safer and for everybody involved, including car drivers, because it's just making it safer. And also the fact is that everything's going to carry on as normal, except it's not going to be normal anymore. It's going to be more let's
Gonna have
say
few rules.
controlled. Yeah.
certainly a big improvement.
You manage your machine as an owner, and no more using a golf cart as a babysitter. It's not gonna happen. And that's
Yeah.
what the public's been after for years. So this fixes it.
What I would like to do or suggest is that on this map, remove the red.
Remove the red.
Because it's
Yeah.
simply, we're showing that the road, this is the road designated highways, all in green. It basically shows that all the roads are in White Sands are designated. The red looks like, oh my God, you can't go there with a golf cart. Whereas if you just remove the red, it then says, these are the roads that you're allowed on.
The red and just
Sure.
focus on.
Just
roads.
remove the red and,
Sure.
because this is about the roads, right? It's not about, you know, if you want to use your golf cart on your private property,
We don't care.
we don't care. I would say just remove the red and that shows the infrastructure, those are the roads you're allowed to go on.
That's a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
You also had talked about the cost for all the signs, and is it necessary to have that many signs through the village? I mean, definitely at the village entrances, could you do the village entrances and then maybe just a couple more as opposed to whatever you had in there, 13 or 15 or
I
something?
thought about that, but because we have to send it off to the province, I was trying to weigh, okay, when somebody pulls out or turns from one road onto another road, they're crossing, right? They're crossing oncoming to get onto the right way to travel. If I reduce the signage, am I gonna put us into where later on we're gonna have an issue? Or is it better to have the signage there, and then we've got it dealt with, and it gets everybody really aware within the whole community. Like, I can reduce it if you wish, it's just that when they say crossing and you have to have this, I thought, okay, safety wise, we wanna encourage better safety. We should probably make sure we have it more visible.
Okay,
And some of it is because if they're coming down one of these roads and if there's the beach access right there, they're gonna go right across. Right? They're not, and it's to encourage more of the safety than to not having enough doesn't encourage the safety as much.
okay.
Yeah,
Like,
it
and
does,
people
I know,
love
I know what Paul's talking about is over signage is sometimes useless. But in this case, I think they were on designated roads. It's not, I don't know, I think,
Are we talking the crossing signs or the share the road signs?
well, anyway, you have to have this signage out there,
Yeah, no, at the entrances, absolutely.
yes.
I would say, you know, at each end of the main drag and in, but
Four-way stop would be a good one to have.
four-way stop
Yeah.
might be, but other than that, I don't know if crossings. Cause most of them are Ts and stuff, and that's not necessarily a crossing of the road, they're not gonna go across the road.
Yeah, we've got share, crossing definitely at that corner, Front Street, all that is a crossing.
Yeah,
Another crossing we put along,
First
Buffalo,
or
and
fourth.
Burt, like in
Fourth.
there, because that was a concern of, you know, how people come out and they cross in front of the traffic coming down. And then we had crossing over at, Jennifer, and we've got a cul-de-sac right across, so I thought that would be a hazard. So the crossing signs are a little bit,
Are they should they be merging signs as opposed to crossing signs perhaps?
well, government, they've got crossing and share the road and golf cart.
Okay.
yeah, and
So-
that's what came with the legislation, so.
Yeah,
So they've only given us 3 types of signage.
No, that's fine. I was just asking.
But the nice thing about this is there might be a way that the golf cart and as we work on the OHV, I might be able to combine those. Because we're gonna also have to advertise OHVs,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Melissa. I know. I don't know, some people don't ever pay attention to signage, but the thing is, we have to do it as liability as well, because we're mandated to use these signs. It's the same deal as a stop sign or yield sign or whatever. Road signs are our thing to look after by the province has given us. And I think this is something that could, especially if you share it with the side-by-sides and whatever else, then it's going to look after us as far as liability down the road if something happens as well.
Yeah, and then our speed signs, like, I haven't toured yet. I know there's one when I come in, but I'm not too sure how many are all around. So we're gonna have to get better at that, because I have heard people say, well, they're speeding on this one, they're speeding on this one. I'm thinking, maybe it's just us making sure we have the proper signage in place.
I don't know, to me, I know that it's.
People know when it is that it's 30, so.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but sometimes we gotta educate everything, and sometimes the onus is on us to make sure the safety is applied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I
I
think it is.
I think we're okay. We gotta move right along. How about?
Okay, but I need a motion now that we've had the chat. So who wants to make the motion? And to make the amendments as discussed with insurance, section 4 DEIK amendments or.
The permitting, the proposed
Uh,
permitting,
Melissa,
I listed it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Melissa, just for what you have marked down there, can you slowly go through them so I can mark them on my paper here? I'm sorry, I
Okay.
wasn't,
So first one is check with municipal insurance on the 2 million liability.
okay,
Understanding that violation tags are municipal responsibility, cost incurred, legal, all that stuff. That was a good point.
so violation tag is municipal and tickets are provincial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other was word definition for road clarity. That
Right.
all highways mean municipal roadways.
Okay, and only
Then
ratepayers,
you've got the fee cost of $70 to put that into the bylaw. And to do clarity on section 4 D, E, I, and K.
There was also.
And remove the red and just focus on the
hold on,
road.
hold on, section 4, section 4,
Section 4 D and E, I and K need clarity, may be redundant.
And also, there was a tow-away at owner's expense. fee
Yes,
Put in
that
there
was it.
somewhere.
Yeah,
okay,
Tow away option at owner's expense.
May be towed at owner's
Yeah.
expense.
So there needs to be a clause.
okay, after the section D and E and I and K, there was a couple other things.
Remove the red on the map and just focus on the roads.
Okay,
just, it's D and I and J and K that I had mentioned.
D, I, J, and K.
D,
Not E.
D, E, J, and K.
J and K.
No I is fine.
Correct. Was close. Okay, and then the clause totally option at owner's expense needs to be added. So you'll wanna do a motion for administration. Motion to accept the draft golf cart pilot project bylaw with the following amendments.
okay, and then also the ratepayers are the only one that can register. I know that's all in there already, but should it be clarified?
I think that would be clarified in the education process of it. The bylaw is only our municipal bylaw, we can't enforce outside.
No, but if someone from outside wants to register a golf cart,
Why would you refuse? Can I ask that question? If somebody from the county wanted to register their golf cart in our municipality and they're gonna provide you insurance because they wanna bring their cart into your municipality. They need to follow your bylaw rules. Would you,
I don't think you have to say you have to be a resident.
like, why would you limit that? Because what if you had a visitor coming in and they brought a golf cart? They need to still pay you to have the registration.
Yeah.
Are you gonna stop that visitor from using their golf cart?
Yeah, I don't know if that would happen too often, but I guess it could, yeah.
Always a possibility.
well, no, I know that I was just asked that. And it was to do with the Bar W.
So if somebody parks a Bar W cart in your backyard because they wanna access down to the beach, would we refuse them a permit?
We could point out to them that you can't legally drive it between Bar W and White Sands.
No, but they could park it. They
Yeah.
could park in the
Yeah.
workplace,
What if
That's
they-
true.
what if they
Park-
just
park and
don't
drive.
you?
Yeah,
park and
Yeah.
drive,
yeah,
which I think is fine. I mean,
if they have the insurance and
They
they're.
have the insurance and they're following our rules and regulations, why would we stop them?
I guess as long as they're meeting any parking bylaws, I don't know if we've got a bylaw that says you can't park on a roadway for 48 hours, but if they're parking on my,
people on your private property.
Then I guess, yeah, okay.
Or they bring a trailer and they park it in one of the parking lots and
Yeah,
offload their
drive around
thing
for the
and
day.
they drive around for the day to the beach and,
Don't go to our boat launch then.
yeah.
Now
I
you've
think,
got the county residents on the other side that come out onto your roadway. They're not your resident, they're
Sure.
county resident, but they can register.
we just wanna make sure they have a permit
Absolutely.
and they know that there's rules.
I don't think
Okay.
it's for us, we're just,
Yeah.
the bylaws for your municipality. Whoever comes in must follow your bylaw.
Regulate and control the golf carts within the village. That's what the,
Regardless of who owns them.
If you get extra revenue that you never thought about,
yeah,
all the power to the municipality.
$70 more to our.
there you go, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. As presented,
To accept the
I
draft
think that,
bylaw 210. 24.
we don't need to say it's going to public consultation until after the first reading, correct?
No,
And then-
right now you're just,
We're just
having-
saying-
directing administration to make the following amendments.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right,
Administration to make the following amendments
Okay.
and bring back
For January.
to January regular meeting.
okay, I'll second that one. All in favor?
Yeah. anybody mind if I make a 2-minute washroom break?
Yeah, sure.
Can you call
Well,
recess?
Why don't we call for 5 or 10 or whatever?
5-minute recess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're-
Called a 5-minute recess.
Actually, I called it.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, how about recess call?
Okay, just start screaming when you're back. I'll be walking around.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everything.
Okay. We're on a recess. You don't look very good. Shower on. Take it off. Cut it off.
I'll unmute, has to unmute. So reconvene. Lauren, can you unmute?
Yep,
Reconvene meeting at 10:57? Is that a yes?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we're moving on to snow removal. There has been a lot of discussion on our snow removal policy from feedback. But you also got to realize, I think the public has to realize too, that at the first snowfall of the season that is fairly heavy is always a concern for everybody. And we have one maintenance man, and there's a lot of roadways, and it takes time. And I know that there's frustration, but also the fact is that we have so much manpower to do the job. And if it's a really bad situation, like sometimes we used to get in March, whether we will again, then we would just call in a contractor if you can get some. So I think it settles down after the first snowfall, but also I think that have some adjustments to do, and they've been talked about on the policy. But people have to be patient. That's and it's governed by our resources. So I guess we'll just carry on with the discussion, Melissa, and I know that there's some ideas out to change a few things, which is great because it should be a fluid document. So take her away.
I like what the Village of Alex has done. They have on this, the parameters are 7 centimeters, so it's a little deeper, so that's roughly 3 inches. Within 24 hours following the end of snowfall of 7 centimeters or greater. That's when snow removal starts, within 24, not immediately. And then regarding the windrow removal, efforts to minimize snow placement in driveways. And those were the one, to say, well, 6 inches, someone's gonna actually go out there with a ruler and find it a 6.5. And so I would say, we're gonna make efforts to, at least on the permanent residents or the residents that are using their driveways or that are out there, that we make an effort to minimize putting a windrow in there across their driveway. But if there is a little skiff, that sometimes happens, because especially some of the longer driveways. And that, because 2 inches of soft fluffy is not a whole lot. And I just want to get away from the expectation that it's snowing, it's got 2 inches. It might continue to snow, but you should be out there because there's 2 inches. I want to say, 3 inches, and upon the end of the snowing, now we got 24 hours to kind of get those primaries at least cleared off.
And you're absolutely right. The soft, fluffy, when it's cold is a lot different than snow with ice building and that sort of thing after a freezing rain or something.
That's exactly right, Paul. The condition of the snow that's falling certainly dictates. So that should be under the discretion of administration.
Yeah.
So snow plowing will commence 24 within, perfect.
24 hours following the end of the snowfall of 7 centimeters or greater. And then regarding Winrow, exactly like the village of Alex said, I thought that was
Okay.
Logan.
So take Village of Alex,
Yeah, so
points and,
how is that practically working right now? Like, does Dustin pretty much know who the permanent residents are, and so they'll try to minimize it there?
Correct.
And then,
Yes,
you know, like I
yes.
did last week, kind of say, I'm coming out, can you clear it if possible?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we do, it's
Paul-
just that the initial snowfall, we had a bit of an issue because the first priority was to open roadways.
That
for
has to be the
release
first, yeah.
one flow of traffic, because it was going to be, people were gonna be needing to go to work.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
and I agree, I think windows have, you know, fit the last priority after all the roadways are cleared and it's
Yeah.
on a best efforts basis, but. You know,
The other thing, Paul, is on the address signage. On the bottom, left-hand corner, there's a little red reflector that's attached to the sign that says that them folks are permanent residents.
oh, I didn't know that,
I did
Yes.
not.
okay, that's handy,
We didn't have it until last year, that's what we started
Yeah.
doing,
okay.
yes.
I see, and then for. Other residents, like historically, it's been Village Plow and there's Windrow and that's the way it is, like with Alex, it still talks about they'll make effort to clear access to the driveways, but we would. Dustin, if it's a not seasonal resident and they haven't notified,
Correct,
they'll just plow.
right,
Yes.
And that they'll.
That makes
residents feel they have to
sense.
come out.
yeah.
Yeah,
The rest of it seems to make sense. You know, the 72 hours notice, if you want your ridge, you know.
so. Was there some question though of. Removing that. Provision to call into the office here and ask for windows to be removed for non-residents, or is that, are we seeing that's the problem?
No, it's your guys' call. It's, some municipalities don't do it at all, removing windrows, some charge. I didn't know if that's something you guys want to look at, or we continue to maintain with just kind of saying, look, we're gonna do everything we can to reduce your windrow on the permanent. The non-permanent residents, you will have to give us 72 hours notice and
Yeah.
we'll go out there and do it. It's anything you want to look at. I'm just bringing it to your attention that these are the concerns that we're having.
I would say as long as it's not being a burdensome of like multiple calls to you or. You know, too much time being taken out of Dustin's or signs that, people are abusing the process by.
I think it's just a clarity of some people will look at a window of 2 inches. And they will say, you didn't take my window away. It's a balancing act that we're trying to, so that 6 inches kind of just says. We are gonna do our best to maintain that we don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Paul, some of the problems that we've had in the past with that was, some folks are just halfway to the village and they call up and want their windrow removed and they're halfway here already. Well,
yeah. No,
I'm sorry, but when you say, well, we'll see what we can do and it doesn't get done, then Melissa and administration in the past just gets blasted and it's not fair. I mean,
No.
You're gonna bring groceries to the lake if you have a cottage that is just for your personal use. Part of that would be pick up the groceries and phone and get the windrow removed, because we have to have the windrow out of there. They need to get into their yard. Otherwise, they're gonna park on the street and then we have a problem with the fire truck getting by. Like, it has to be something, and it is done through education, but some people just don't do it and they get mad. Well,
And then something, the other concern is because we don't go, like, we take it off to the edge of where we plowed. Sometimes people think the clarity of, well, you should be doing it right to my property line.
Yeah.
So it's just getting that balance and understanding with people that your expectation is going a bit too far considering what we can actually do.
We're gonna make an attempt not to put a windrow in front of residents.
Right, but we're not gonna
On the
clear it
road.
to the property line. or-
No, we can't, that's not part of this.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, get a private contractor if you wanna.
yeah, any further private contractor, we don't get involved unless the municipality wants to have
No.
some other option, that's.
That would be, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So in other words, the windrow thing, we're gonna just follow Village of Alex, we're gonna amend the snow removal policy, so motion to amend the snow removal policy with amendments to the adding 24 hours, the snowfall amount, and the clauses similar to Village of Alex policy.
yeah, but we still have the people that come out, still, the 72 hours and all of that still remains the same.
Right,
Yes.
and
So
it
they can
should-
still call in, get there.
it should be 72 hours, but also, you can't include the weekends on there, because we don't have help then, right? So I don't know how you would,
Not on the weekends. I feel like my phone, goes off more on the weekends than I've ever seen.
Well, should we say provide 3 business days notice?
yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
Like-
we do have 72 hours notice to the municipal office during regular municipal operating
Okay.
hours.
There you go.
Okay,
Well-
okay.
Just getting that clarity across.
Yeah,
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 well, you know.
I think we're there. I'll do the
Yeah.
amendments. We'll bring it back to the January meeting and then you guys can. And then just approve it as.
Yeah.
as amended.
Yeah, maybe we could just add to best efforts, you know, I don't know, would it be worth adding the best efforts and being clarified that, you know, we will not intend to, like,
It just says
incur overtime. make
efforts
expenses.
to minimize is what we say.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
I think that says it, that's what. it
Yeah.
is.
okay,
I'll make sure that some of these clauses, especially the plowing services about the windrow, get a little more concrete and kind of. Who's gonna have the ones done
mhm,
as quickly as possible, then the non-permanent.
yeah,
Cause even in here, it doesn't really say permanent, maybe that needs to be in. So I'll tweak it more, but I've got some,
and it would be interesting to know on an ongoing basis if we are continuing to get the complaints, like, you know, what they are, so we can. Close it up or maybe send out as communications and monthly newsletters or something like that, like.
that's why I thought this was really good, because it started giving you guys the feedback of what.
It's helpful.
Yes, and then we can just review the policy and make it better.
Yeah, but maybe a discussion in the newsletter is the way to do it as well.
No, it's always education, we'll continue moving forward, so. Motion to have administration amend the snow removal policy with the amended discussion. Can we do it that way?
yeah, I'll make that motion. We need a seconder,
Just vote,
okay. All right,
And just a question, this feedback and photos that were added by a resident concerned about these trees that were plowed over, these are trees on their property or trees on the municipal right of way that were damaged by the snowplow or something like that?
Lauren, can you do better clarity on that, cause
Yeah,
I'm
I was
not
confused by
sure.
that too.
well, the trees in the photo are on private property.
So he went fast enough to push the snow off the road and
No.
across this.
It was off the cul-de-sac. It's at the end of let me have a look here. Aspen Ridge Close.
Yeah,
That's what-
I was Used.
the trail comes down from there to Buffalo Road. So they turn around in the cul-de-sac. And in turning around there, he went too close to the fence and then buried some trees. Some small trees that were planted on private property. That's what, like, I'm not at the lake, but through the looking at the pictures, that's what's happened. As well as the lot where the snow was piled is private property.
Is that private okay. So where the fence is not on it's within the property, but not on the property line? Is that what's going on? It was very
Where
confusing.
Okay, so when you're looking at the photograph there and it says my pile.
My pile is the municipality did it.
And
The other one, the municipality didn't do.
well, the snow is pushed onto private property there too, but I'm not out there to go and have a look. And you'd have to ask Dustin what the program is there. Because the owner of the property also removes snow. But he wouldn't bury his own tree. Well, I don't know, burying the trees, are they damaged? I have no idea. But maybe, Danny, you can have a look and report back to Melissa, or would that be okay?
Yeah, I'll try to determine where that exactly is and.
Yeah, it's a hard one because I think there's municipal reserve there, but I don't know if this is within their it looks like it's outside their property, but it wasn't done by the municipalities, so we don't have any camera footage, we don't know who did it.
Well,
Munis-
I think
Shot to
if you go look at where the rail fences are, because it was a problem there in the first place, because the house on the left-hand side of the photograph there it's got a rail fence beside it. You can barely make it out, but that is the property line for the pathway going down to Buffalo Road. And then the second fence is next to the property that's private. And the end posts on the rail fence are on right where the property pins are. So if you go down there and look at, because we had that surveyed, because the lady that built that house that's on the left-hand side, the people that poured concrete used the pegs across the pathway. So she's really, really way too close to the property line because the contractor put the foundation in the wrong place. So that is why we had it put the rail fences on both sides so people know where their property line is. So
then that would say that those trees are not on her property.
you'd have to look, Dan, because I think they are. Because the second photo there with the one arrow and says trees,
Yeah,
that's their property, because there's another rail fence towards the left of that second photo.
so can you explain again where this is? Off of Buffalo Road?
It's on, you know where Mark and Cheryl Van Dusen live?
Yes. Yeah.
In that cul-de-sac.
Okay, I'll run down there and take a look.
So basically what happened is somebody, wasn't us, plowed and did it.
We don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll take a look and see if I can determine who's what where.
yeah. And then the other photos are just some of the bridges that we were asked to.
I don't see that bridge as being all that excessive, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted you guys to see this is like kind of some
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
But
you.
our policy does allow people to push snow from their property across the
Yes, it
roadway.
does.
So I'm walking a fine line with this one.
Okay, any more
Okay.
questions?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on.
Did we pass that motion? Yes.
Hang on,
Yeah.
moved by Lawrence, have administration amend the snow removal policy with the discussions and bring back to January meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, carried.
Okay, number 7, business, Parkland Regional Library Agreement and Alberta Libraries Act review. So when last meeting, I asked, because of, it's a real funny area for a municipality like us. We joined, and it was costing us around $750 a month. But then the population problem that we have now, it took our requisition from, what is it, 1,200 to 1,800.
1700.
And to be honest with you, if someone wants to use the library in town, they can for free of charge because we're part of the system. If we weren't part of the Parkland Regional Library agreement, then they would have to pay $30 a year to belong.
Unless they have a library card somewhere else in Alberta.
Right.
Okay,
Paul.
you can do it through anywhere in Alberta.
Right, and so
For myself,
I really don't know how much or how many people are using in the White Sands community are using that service. And for us, like, all I wanted to do is get some investigation going on that.
Are we allowed to withdraw?
Yes,
You can. I can't give you all the right answers yet because you would have to we'd have to send a letter to the minister. And this is where we ended up in this predicament, was because they didn't feel all municipalities should be sharing in this cost based on the Libraries Act, so it is your decision.
what I was wondering, to clarify, like if we withdraw from the Parkland Regional Library System, are we expected to put something else in its place, or can we just say no library? That's what I wasn't too clear on.
no, you don't have to replace it with anything. I don't know, Melissa, does Roshan Sands belong?
Yep. Yes, they do.
So,
I mean,
and
like, we could probably pull out of it, and we could say to people that choose to do it, we talked about last time, if they have a $30 fee themselves, that we could like reimburse it or something, but I think those are all fair things, but at the same time, I think we need to put it in context of, this is an additional $500 we're talking about, and I don't want us to, like, forest for the trees analogy of just spending, too much issue on this to save $1,700 a year, whereas before at 1,200 we were okay with it, but I don't know. Just wanted to have context on it.
Population's gonna increase, that's gonna be a factor on no matter what you look at, because everything we do is based on population, so there's always gonna be an increase somewhere. I can't give you an answer, you can withdraw, it's gonna take 12 months notice, you're gonna need the minister's approval. What if the minister doesn't approve?
well, then you don't do it, but the other thing is it could damage reputation for the summer village. And another point is that when you're putting a questionnaire about the golf cart business, you could also ask them about who in the village uses the library service card. I don't know.
And then this all came into a head back in 2014 with the minister, and so will it become another issue again if you try to withdraw? I don't know. So, but either way, you're gonna be paying these costs this year, because it would take a year to go through this. So do you want to see how many residents, maybe do a survey of the residents and see and then make some decisions based on that. I don't know.
Even
And I
if,
get- I-
150 residents, even if 10% of them use a library, which I would kind of be surprised about a little bit. That's only 15 people paying $30 each. That's still what, $450? $450 as opposed to 17. So even if it was a very small percentage, which I think we're being generous in saying 10%, it would use a library system. It would still be much cheaper to not pay this. I'm just trying to get the benefit, and I agree, you know, we pay a school tax individually, and a lot of us don't have kids going to school anymore. But this library, it's just something that I just find it doesn't really apply to us a whole lot. So are we just throwing money at it just to be good corporate citizens, or I don't know.
I don't know if it was about being good corporate citizens or whether back in 2014 it was because the provincial government with the Libraries Act decided this isn't fair for certain
To
municipalities.
cover the costs.
Well,
When
it wasn't instigated by the government. It was instigated by a ratepayer in the village to join, and that's how it happened.
Okay, so,
That's a fact. We might have got
Yeah.
a letter of appreciation, but it was instigated by resident and council approved in because there was a lot of pressure by one resident. In saying that, there was also some people that have moved away and passed on that used to use it quite a bit, but I don't know anymore. With our technology has changed a bunch. But we have,
I'm not saying it's making libraries obsolete, because it's not, but there's a lot less use of a library.
Well, I think to do a survey of residents of who's using the library, and do you consider this a service that you would like the Summer Village to keep? I think is
that possible to do that, just looking at cost, but is it possible to do that just electronically?
yes, thank you. We can do it right off the website, put a link on the Facebook.
Just looking for input. It doesn't even have to be all that formal, but just, you know, we're looking for input. You know, we are part of this, we could say we are part of this. You know, we just want to see the value of being part of this agreement. And, you know, if we withdraw, who would it affect?
So do a survey on users of regional library systems?
Yep.
And then we'll get some details and bring it back to the
well,
next meeting.
you should name the Parkland Regional Library System in conjunction with Settler Library, because that's the services that they would use would probably be the photocopying. They have internet service there and computers that you can work on. They have a lot of services within the province, like electronic books. You know, they have movies in Stettler and whatever, but I don't know, like I said before, the technology has changed so much since 2014. I mean, that's 10 years ago, and it's a lot of it's kind of getting a little iffy.
well, I mean, the library does have some good services, and when I attended the meeting there last month, they were talking about this SuperNet that they've got, that's super high speed stuff. So I mean, there's some value to it, but you know, like I said, I can go in with my Calgary library card and I can access anything at the Stettler Library, so any non-permanent residents can do it. So this would really be impacting some of the permanent residents, I think,
I
potentially
think that's
more.
why we need to go out to the larger, because I think you're right, it's
Yeah.
though, because everybody's using it, even if it's summer people coming out, and maybe they have something at the library in the summer, and those non-permanent could be accessing some of those resources too.
Yeah,
So I think getting this out on our website and Facebook and just seeing and getting
Mhm.
feedback on who uses, what they use type of thing.
Sure.
Maybe
I would like to keep it as simple as possible. Just to say that we are currently part of this system and there is a cost associated with it. And we are just reaching out to determine whether anybody in the summer village uses this service. That's simple.
Yeah.
And then if they say, yes, I use it extensively and all the time and for research, then that's one, okay? Now, how many?
Mhm.
And we'll get a feel, and most people, I think most people will be like me, if I wanna use a library, I go get a library card, and if I have to pay for it, well, so be it, but I don't, it's almost a user fee almost, as opposed to, I don't know, that's where keep it simple. I wouldn't put it much more than that.
Yeah, so what I need is a motion to have administration do a Parkland Regional Library question and survey to the ratepayers
Electronically,
electronically.
I don't
Right?
wanna incur the cost of we can't mail.
How about summit? Can you give me a motion?
Motion to seek information from the the ratepayers electronically about their use of the library services.
Parkland Regional
Parkland.
Library System Services.
Yeah.
And the step, including the Stettler Public Library.
Yeah. And I'd leave it at that. And then that should be just a simple, note sent out and to everybody that's on it. Wouldn't that suffice?
Perfect. Made by
Okay.
Dan. To have administration. Okay, I think I got it. Moved by Dan to have administration conduct a survey to seek information from the ratepayers electronically about the use of Parkland Regional Library services, including Stettlers, and bring back to January meeting with information collected.
Okay.
Sure.
Because then you can review it.
Okay, all in favor? Yep,
Yeah.
thank you. So the next item.
Here, I didn't know if I could type it that quick. I got it.
The next item is fairly slam dunk. This is about, before the end of the year, we have to do an interim budget so that we can continue after the first of the year until we get our budget set. So what it does is just draw our 2024 budget into 2025. And we're mandated to do this unless we have a budget set, and which we don't. So we just need a motion. And it's in the act, we have to do it.
So really, this is just that we can just basically interim operate until you finalize an actual budget.
Sure. What's the timing for the full budget process?
Well, I'm thinking we're gonna start year-end close is in January. So then we'll start finalizing our numbers, so probably closer to the end of January, and then we'll get the auditors in. There's a lot of stuff we gotta do.
But the auditor doesn't deal with the budget, they deal with the year end.
The year-end numbers, but we should be able to in January, after we get probably about second week of January, third week of January, we should be able to close off everything for year-end, and we'll have better numbers to start creating the budget and bringing the discussion numbers of all the other stuff. Requests.
Going forward, would it work to be doing the budget like October, November, December ahead of the final year numbers, but entering the new year with the budget by January 1st? Is that a reasonable thing?
It is to a certain point.
As we're such a small municipality, we run a tightness already. We're not like the cities, they start, but they're also projecting because, well, we can say, okay, we could have said, well, if you go with the 4%. And we'll just base it on that one because you passed it in your 3-year operating budget. I'm just saying, let's stick to this. We can maintain operations.
Right.
And let you guys have time to review all the original stuff from what was passed last year, and does it still fit, does it not fit? Do we need to do more changes, and what are the new requests coming in that are outside influences we didn't think about?
Maybe we can do it separately, but I would like to gain a better understanding, and I think Paul might as well. Gain a better understanding of how some of this is in process. Like,
Mhm.
what is the process? How do we set that budget? And maybe it's more of an education thing. I mean, Lauren, you've been through it a number of times. But I would like to know earlier than January.
Yeah,
In moving forward, I mean, we're already into December, we probably missed that window of opportunity.
yeah,
But I would like to know more about how the setting of that budget process works, so that when we come into this again, we have a pretty good idea. And yes, there will be, just to get more accurate on our budget, we still will need to employ the interim budget and all of that. But I think, to Paul's point, we probably could start thinking about that process earlier. At least if we're anticipating having to increase one or two items, or potentially decrease one or two items. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
no, that's fair, and that's why carrying along with your financials every month is kind of keeping you guys to know that what's budgeted, where we're actually at, so are we fitting within the budgets? This is the big thing during the year. When it comes down to the budget, a lot of things are being put into place here, and you're right, it is education, and we do have January 16th. That will be the education session, which municipal affairs will provide, which will really cover the budgeting process, and that's where there's a lot of factors in play. Now that the
Yep.
regulations say we have to have a 3-year and a 5-year capital, so that will start, and that's what you hear on the news with the bigger cities is, okay, so they were looking at this percentage, but now they're seeing they're gonna have to go higher.
Yeah.
Than what they projected.
Because of all the infrastructure, yeah.
Where I'm looking at listening to what's come back in some of the discussions I've had, like we've got the Hall Society, which I've had the meeting in, and I'll bring that back and how that's gonna play. We might be okay with what was kind of passed as the 3-year, but again, it's a discussion of this council, because maybe there's a change.
Okay.
And I think the other problem that we had this year is that we didn't have quorum, so we couldn't do anything, for quite some time. And it could be readjusted, so we do start having, and it doesn't have to be at regular council meetings either. Like, we can call special meetings for just budget, period. So.
Right, but it still has to be public.
Yeah.
All budget items must be done in public.
But we can still call special meetings for that. All we have to do is give 72 hours notice or whatever it is to and put it on the website, and we can call a budget meeting.
And most likely January, I'm gonna come to you guys or send out an email and say, I'd like to start scheduling budget discussions.
Yep.
And then we will go from there until we can get to the point of where we can get to the finalization. Because we must have a tax rate bylaw done prior to sending out the tax notices, because you can't send out a tax notice unless you have a tax rate bylaw and you have a budget passed.
Right.
So, and normally we like to get the tax rate bylaws out by the 3rd week of May. And then we need to pass the budgets usually in April. And then you'll have your audited financial statements too, so it gets pretty, we really start getting into everything. Yeah,
And one of the important parts of this whole thing is too, that the budget being put together, council should be in on that part as well. What the proposals are is part of council's business too. But there's a base budget that is made by administration, and then you go from there. And really pertinent that, especially now, that it's gone through line by line. So everybody it has some understanding of how it's done and where the money is coming from. And, you know, it's an important thing that council should be involved in. The other part of that is that in the past few years, you got to understand that we've gone from the town of Stettler taking us for 22 years, and they charged us $35,000 or $32,000 a year. And that was for everything except for paper and phone calls and stuff. So then we went and shared with Roshan Sands. And we were there. So that was completely a budget changer, because we didn't, when we were with the town of Stettler, we didn't own a pencil. When we moved from the town of Stettler to Roshan Sands' office,
didn't know anything either.
we had nothing. All we had was our files. So then we had to buy things to put the files in, and desks and share and this and that. And then it didn't work out. Now we're into a different realm. So taxes have gone up, but they were low for a lot of years. So now we're in a situation where we're going to have our own office. We're going to have our administrator in
the village,
assistant in the village. So it's a budget changer.
And you have the equipment, because you have your own server. You have your own copier, you have your own postage thing. Those are just standard office things that the municipality didn't have.
Yeah, we didn't have anything. When we were with the town of Stettler, we used their system for taxation and the whole schmear. The mapping was under their umbrella, everything. We had a hell of a good ride for a long time. But,
so the line by line review of the budget occurs when? And we sit down and we say, okay, general administration, what does that include? Wages, what does that include? And we break down by individual, okay, and that's what I'm looking forward to, and I think that's what we need more.
So this now will become more wide open, and it'll start showing you the categories of how we go about. Yeah, so what I'm only gonna look at is just the general first. What are the increases that we know
That occurred or
we're gonna know that employee stuff is gonna go up. Deductions, we know we're gonna get hit with that. We know there's a new carbon pricing, so we know we gotta take some of our stuff and how does that affect some of the budgetary cost things just for regular operations. Then it comes down to the requests, like we've got the Hall Society requests, which I've had the meeting, and I know how that affected. I know we'll bring that back with how will that affect the budget. That'll be decisions that you guys will be taking a look at, because overall, we finalize a budget number. It all depends on your fees for services, all those revenue sources will help offset. So that bottom line budget number doesn't mean that's what's being taxed out there.
No, okay, yeah, I understand.
Okay.
And the other thing is that we really have to look after is the granting system, because it changes all the time. And they change the names of the grant, and they change the amounts and all the rest of that we get from the provincial and feds. But the thing is to make sure that we're on top of where we're at with the budget in using that grant money before we're forced to, because that's not a good position. So it has to be good planning in that regard. And
that's why the province has 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. we had to have 5-year capital
That's 3 and
plans.
5, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we now have some stuff and we've built things around because there are costs involved to the engineering and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Everything, when it comes to quick grant opportunities, is a 2-week time frame, and you better be shovel ready.
Yeah.
Well, there's a cost to be
Yeah.
shovel ready. So, but it's not as bad as we think. It's just the decisions of where do we cut if we have to cut.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
as bad because it's progressed.
Yeah.
Because, like, I keep going back to Tom Stouter, but you know, they had the CAO, they had 2 accountants, they had all the staff. We were using their engineering department and the whole schmear. And as far as budget went, it was small beans for them to take care of ours and then present it and change it around. But now we're getting in a situation where administration is doing ours, but it needs to be more explained to council, because sometimes council gets asked questions and they should be able to answer as best as they can, and if not, refer back to administration. But I think it's a very important thing where you understand where the money comes from, where it goes, what's grants, and other items that are there. And it's got to be done really, I think, really more intense this year than it ever has been.
And just about the grants, we are caught up now. There is no taking back of grants.
So we fully utilized all the old grants that had deadlines expiring.
I've been working hard because we almost, if that Front Street project wouldn't have been pushed as fast and as hard, we would have lost $92,000 in grants.
Yeah.
And then the municipal office, that's the other one that we were losing, but we've met every criteria now. We cannot, the big thing now moving forward is do not let our grants go up to 5.
Yeah,
Start having a process where we're doing certain things
we don't miss.
and making sure we use about 10% annually of the grant funding to the best of our ability.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
responsible decisions. That's sometimes other communities get into trouble where they see the money there and then they make a decision that is actually going to cost them more money down the road. So that's why we have to be educated and thinking all the
Yeah.
time, right? Yeah.
And making sure that we get it clearly across that once you go through your budget process and you do all your authorizations and you approve your budget and you've approved your projects, unless it's an emergent thing, that's what gives us the direction.
Yeah.
You can't go and dig somewhere else to try and find money, or you're gonna take something away. Once you approve it, they move.
Okay, so the request today is for an interim operating budget of $985,000, which is exactly what the 2024 budget
Yes.
was? Okay,
Yes.
on the next page, it talks about a 2025 budget that adds up to $1,024,000. It's got the column 2024 budget, 2024 actual, and then 2025 budget. 2024 budget is that 985,000. I'm looking at total revenue, so I'm looking at the right line. And then for 2025, it's saying 1024.
I think that was set up, okay, so what we do in the system is we put in the 2024. And then we go with the 2024 actuals. And then the last council had agreed to a 4% increase.
That's, yeah,
So this would be
the taxes have increased, so.
with the 4% is what, but
But that's not a final number.
So that was a preliminary 2025 budget from last year.
correct.
Okay.
Cause they are not the final, they're preliminary because you passed guesstimates.
Yeah,
And
okay,
now we're gonna deal with the real.
okay, so for now, we'll do the interim of 0% increase. And then we'll work out what okay.
Yeah,
Sense. Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
That gets us to our finalized budget.
Yeah,
And yeah, because we know there's percentage increases out there, we know there's a cost of living, we just have to figure that all out for you guys, so that,
Yep.
and how does it affect?
Okay, I'll make that motion,
good.
and we need a seconder.
I can do that.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm just getting a bit of a here.
Uh-oh.
We're making it. Where are we now?
Okay, We-
Reports.
Okay,
so we're in reports, we do have before that on some financials there, but on my copies anyway.
Mhm.
So, I'll ask for, I guess, mine. I put my written one in there. And, I assume you folks have read it. The only thing I have on there is that there was a request at the Shirley McClellan Water Commission meeting that the line that is going to go up to Roseland and Balf, and obviously goes through the county of Camrose. The county of Camrose used to belong to the commission, but they dropped out because they have they also belong to Highway or 1221 Water Commission. So there's some farmers along that line where it is traveling that want to hook up to the line. So there's going to be some kind of because the Camrose County is not part of the commission, then there's going to have to be some talks about how the farmers can be accommodated. So that may also make a difference for us. I'm just not sure, because we can't hook onto the line. It goes through our property, like on the road allowance that is under control of us. But if we were to hook into the line and let's say try and take the service down to the hall to automatically fill the cistern, we would have to then hire an operator to do the testing. That's the way it is right now. But I don't know what's going to happen with farmers hooking up to that line. So it'll be interesting to see how that negotiations take place.
But wouldn't there be precedent with farmers that are on the existing lines? Or this is the first time that independent farmers tie in?
But Camrose County is not in the commission. The rest of the farmers that hook up to the lines, all their members the counties are in the commission, like the counties that are county painter, the special areas. So that's the problem.
Right.
So that's going to get looked at. The other thing, Melissa, is what I wanted to mention is that debenture for that new line,
yeah,
we can only pay that off at certain times. And that's
Yeah.
when they refinance. So I guess we'll just have to keep our eyeballs on it, because if council decides they want to pay that off instead of doing the debenture, that is something that we should look at.
it's already in your grant, we've already reported for it. So that's been taken care of if council decides that they want to continue using it as using their grant on that. Or in the budget discussions, if council wants to look at how to deal with it in the special tax. So I think it's there, we have it ready, it's whatever council decides.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is when the loan is signed for the new project, that has to be done that time. And if you
Yeah.
miss that if you miss that date, you can't do it. So
Yeah, we're ready. It's just a decision I need of council, and that's gonna be part of your budget deliberations too, because I think it's gonna be coming probably right in the spring. So we need to have those discussions as part of budget.
well, they're starting construction. They've already bought the line, but they did that from reserves, like they physically bought the material for the line. But as soon as they make a refinance and get things rolling, because they have to pay for engineering and all the rest of it, if we miss that timeline, then you're not going to be able to pay that debenture without you just can't do it without a bunch of penalties. It costs you too much. So Krista at the county, Krista Cornelson is the gal to talk to, or else you bet.
Yeah, usually the debenture call-outs will come sometime in March, April.
Okay.
From
Just
the capital finance.
Yeah, so that's one thing we don't want to miss. And as far as the other part of it is all down there, I had a few other things. There was a request to make a donation to the Big Jack Classic fishing derby. So I was asked to bring it. I was just contacted not very long ago.
Can they provide a written request for January's meeting so that you guys can deal with it?
I can get them to do that for sure.
That would be fantastic, and then you guys can have that discussion.
Okay, and the other thing was Ian McCormick, Melissa, remember he mentioned that it may be a good idea, or it'd be completely up to council whether they wanted it or not, but we have a system where people can lodge concerns through the internet to the office, and then they're recorded and presented, but nothing that is over the phone as a bouquet or a complaint. So Ian suggested that we get, if council wants to, have administration make a log of the concerns, not with names or anything, so that we can see what is the main concern of the village ratepayers. And I don't know whether you guys just want to think about that and then we can move forward with it in January. But he seemed
Do
to
we
think
currently get that
idea.
information? Do we currently get that information in summary form?
No,
Yes.
no, I'm talking about the calls that would be read, like when someone calls, what is their concern, the day it was made or whatever, and keep a log of them kind of things.
Okay.
But Melissa
So more
does,
formalized.
yeah,
So,
it's basically the number of calls if it's a big concern of the ratepayers. Melissa handles it, but we don't know the volume of calls and to what are they about. Ian seemed to think that that would be a good idea, but I don't know. It's a lot more work though.
yeah,
And
like I could do a call log and an email log and just do a great big Excel sheet and give you guys a monthly. It is a lot of work because I'm pulling everything. What I do right now is like I did with the snow removal. These were the concerns that we have heard. And I brought it based on your policy. And then in my CAO report, I'll bring other things to your guys' attention based on certain things that I've dealt with or I can't deal with, and maybe it needs to go in based on policy revival. So I don't know what you guys really want. If you want me to just do a daily action sheet where I do what I'm already kind of writing down here and I summarize it, or do you want an actual physical one and then you can just walk through it and decide what's important? I don't know.
But
Because a lot of it is
Along with that comes a lot of administration, but I'm only bringing it up because Ian from Municipal Affairs suggested it. But I know that Melissa's report takes care of what the part that Ian was telling me and us was that the daily thing would be more effective, but it's also very hard on administration. So
It's you guys as well.
I don't want to necessarily make more work, but I do see value. I mean, I think of the police report, you know, that they had, X many calls related to this over a month or something like that. I think there could be value in knowing how many calls and emails you're getting and what the recurring trends are. I get that you summarize that here, but it's, I don't know, I like data.
Do you want me to create something like with the RCMP? Like, I don't have a problem with saying snow removal and then just go month by month and kind of,
4 calls.
yeah, I could do it that way. I don't
But-
know if I'm gonna go too far into detail because that'll take a lot of time.
no, you can't. You can't, Melissa. But what you maybe could do, like in the wintertime for snow removal, you could have snow removal on a spreadsheet, negative or positive, whatever. Like very short,
Yeah.
but then it also takes time. I know that.
Because I have no problems with doing stuff like beach access, which I have brought up in my reports, like beach access gates, and we've had these concerns and we get calls on the weekends, this is how many times. I'm okay, I've done that in my reporting, but I can do it in a different way if that's what you guys.
Just
like.
more, yeah, so more formalized.
Yeah. And then, I don't think it needs to necessarily have detailed notes of everything, but there could just be like a little comment field, and you can just say, this was a trend in these, large number of calls this last month or something like that.
Yeah, it could just be a general
But
thing.
normally,
I think
yeah,
Ian went a
normally I
little
bring
too
the
far.
policy is concerned.
Yeah.
And then you guys deal with the policy and you can figure out the balance where the concerns really fit.
Yeah,
Some things I can.
if you come up with something, Melissa, and I'm not saying that you're not doing your due diligence, because you are.
Well,
It just, it
how about
might,
starting the new year? I'll come up with something and I'll throw it in as another reporting mechanism and see what you guys think.
Sounds good.
yeah. And the other thing that Ian said to us, like I was in the gallery, I couldn't say anything, but information, kind of had some chats. He said, why are you putting the check register in the agenda? And so he told us that that's not necessary. And so if you folks want to look at the check register, either Ian or Danny, then just ask for it.
Okay.
So that's the end of mine.
Okay. I can go next, if you're okay with that. I attended the Stettler Regional Fire Advisory on the 29th of November. Largely the county and the town were there, as well as Rojan and us. And they talked mostly administrative stuff. They're continuing training. We looked at firefighter remuneration. Apparently, we are kind of in the middle of the pack across Alberta. So they've looked at that. They are, continuing to procure and tender various equipment. But the main thing that came out of it is that the infrastructure and upgrading is working well. All stations are fully equipped and operational, Stettler, Donalda, and Big Valley. And they're putting in a new pager system, which will help with some of the more remote communications. And that was about it. I mean, they did go through an incident report. It looks like the majority, 198 incidents in total-ish. And most of them were fire, medical assistance, motor vehicle, lots of alarm calls. They get a lot of false alarms. 64 of those were false alarms, or most of them were. Some small hazmat and some small rescue, but that was kind of their summary. Nothing really jumped out as, oh, this is growing or becoming less. They felt that they had resolved their previous issues and everything was, I wouldn't say a big hug fest, but they were pretty happy with where everything was at. And there wasn't much more to report on that. I had also attended the emergency management meeting yesterday. That for the most part, out of that, Lauren was in there as well. There is some training that's offered, and they do suggest that some of our people attend that. Regional staff should at least complete to level 300. I think it was an interesting discussion about some of the lessons learned out of Jasper, out of the flooding in High River in Calgary, the fire in Fort McMurray, the fire in Slave Lake, that sort of thing. And they are doing a tabletop exercise tomorrow that involves the school and the RCMP active shooter. That's a tabletop, so I don't think that's too much in the field. It's mostly if this happened, what would happen. But they are doing, interesting enough, every 4 years they have to do a full-scale exercise. And this next one is coming due, and they will do it, they're planning the 3rd week in June. And that will be the Dixon Dam bursting and some of the impact that would be felt from that. For example, taking out all the bridges from the dam all the way to the border, and what that would entail as far as communications and all the emergency services. So I think that would be interesting to participate to some degree. From a summer village, that particular exercise would mostly be the potential unavailability of getting some of those emergency services. So we wouldn't be directly impacted on that, except possibly from, some of the unavailability of some of those things.
Yeah, and Dan, they talked about the water.
And the water was probably the biggest issue that would impact most of the communities that were not directly on the Red Deer River. Would be affected still by the water situation.
Yes.
So that would be the biggest impact. And it could be a longer term impact, like it could be weeks and weeks. Because once you flood those systems and the intakes with all the sludge that could potentially come down, that could be crazy. But interesting meeting. They will be reporting on to the elected officials in March. I believe it is. And so that will come down, they'll or in February, actually, advisory.
February will be the advisory also.
Yeah, so they'll basically tell us that summary for the most part. And then I have a waste and recycling scheduled for Friday that I will be attending. And we'll see what that has to say. I will be attending that remotely.
Okay, updates for me, attended that Parkland Regional Library System Board meeting November 14th that we talked about in the last meeting there. Organizational meeting, setting up the chair and executive committee. Of interest, our vote, we voted no on the 2025 budget. They said from what they had received at that time, only one summer village that voted no, so that would have been us. But they were already over the threshold of needing the 2/3 of municipalities and 2/3 of population. So the vote is carried and the budget is approved. attended the County of Stettler Housing Authority meeting November 21st. Again, that was organizational meeting, setting up the chair and vice chair and other things for next year. Continuing to assess the impact that'll be of the provincial combination of the health and social services agencies. I think there's varying opinions on whether this is something that'll be quick within weeks or whether this will take up to 6 months, but they're taking a wait and see. Long discussion of a union grievance issue that was held in camera, and continuing some follow-up that'll be going forward on whether to look at appealing the arbitrator's decision on it or whether it can. Biggest issue there is an ongoing high vacancy rate in the lodges there that has gone back to COVID times, but I think they're only sitting at something like 75% occupancy rates. One of the things that they're doing is they cleared up a wing in one of the lodges to free up space for out-of-town doctors, pharmacists, ambulance workers, other healthcare staff. And there are some staff staying there, particularly I think some ambulance staff are staying in those right now, and I think it's working out well, so that is positive. And then just Monday attended the Stettler District Ambulance Association, also organizational meeting, and yeah, not too much new on that. The last meeting in December, the special meeting to set out to approve the budget, and the union deal is in place. Core Flex is gone now and replaced with this new shift schedule, and I think everybody seems quite happy with that. That's it for me.
Thank you, Paul. And CAO written report is,
Yeah, I provided you guys a written report. I'm gonna do a quick summary here. So I received 2 complaints regarding overflowed dumpsters. We figured out that there had been a breakdown with the regional service. And so because we're on a 10-day rotation, pickup bi-weekly, we probably missed almost 3 weeks of pickup. So that's been all taken care of. November 19th, inquiry regarding more recycling options. So I checked into it and I found out that it is provided by 5 Star Ventures, because they also do not just our cardboard, they will do tin and plastic. So you have to get separate bins. And so based on our cost just for doing the cardboard, we rent a bin, so that's $50 a month, so we'd have to get 2 more bins. And then to empty the cardboard bin is $60 per pickup, that's flat fee, no mileage or fuel charge. So we can do some calculations on what that would look like if council wishes to increase options for recycling in the municipality. So that's gonna be another budget proposal brought forward if you guys wanna talk about it.
I'm attending that meeting on Friday, and I would like to ask whether that's covered by the EPR, because those
Okay.
cardboard, plastic and mixed paper, which would be what those 2 bins would, that is supposed to be covered by the provincial EPR program. So there should be no cost or reduced cost if we keep it to those. It has to be packaging, type material, but and the producers of those products are supposed to be paying. And that's how it'll be. So I will be asking about that EPR program, and will that see an increase or a decrease in our costs?
Yes, because we contract. So
Correct.
we need to find out, how does this work with?
For
we
us, and
contract?
we need to, because there is an application and a registration process that we should be doing under them. Or if we're paying for it separately and doing it separately, are we still being tracked by them?
Yes.
So we need to find out whether we fit under theirs, or do we have to apply for that separately?
And yeah, because it's been very convoluted when I've reviewed it, because we we have someone pick up, we're part of the regional. But now if we step into this area, this becomes where it could fit under the APR, but I'm not too sure how, because we still subcontract.
Yeah, so we are paying for cardboard separately. Are we paying for these other materials separately, and
And how would we be reimbursed?
how would we be reimbursed for those services? And they're supposed to have certain levels of standard recycling and that for the villages of our size even.
Yeah,
So, well, I'll find that out more on Friday, that's one of the questions. Did you find out anything about lids? I don't know if we specifically requested that. I know.
I haven't had a specific request on that, I haven't got to that part yet.
Okay, I'd like to find out from whoever provides the garbage service, I assume
Which is
that's
the regional,
regional,
yeah.
if we could have lidded bins.
I'm gonna work on that one, I wanted to get this one.
Okay,
So
yeah, no, that was
that's
the
a budgetary.
because that was an issue this summer, and it came up when those two complaints about the overfilling. Not that lids would have helped a whole lot, but they would help a little,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. but I will definitely, yeah, the lids is my next, but I thought the recycling one came up actually
Yep.
quite easy.
Okay,
To dig around and get the numbers so I can have.
and I will be asking that at that regional meeting as well. I think
Perfect.
that's probably an appropriate time to ask about those two items.
I think you're right,
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't wanna step on the administration's toes on double asking, but I think it's worthwhile at least getting clarification.
yeah, if it's an option that they would provide or not.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're making it, if you can find out through this, the regional.
Yep.
Then
Okay.
that's our question for us.
Okay.
You got
Yeah.
a voice note from Alberta Recycling Management Authority about phase 2 of the EPR you just got today, so that.
Yeah, I kind of saw that and I have to investigate.
Yeah,
that. I can't answer anything until I have the check.
Yeah, so it's just called today.
Danny, can I ask you, have you, in your travels with the trash department, seen a large dumpster like we have with lids on it, or is it just the smaller ones?
I have seen you can do it, we have what's called an 8-yard tipper. I've seen those, they're metal ones are impossible, but they do have plastic. That you can open and close with a minimal, not much bigger than our cardboard. But they can also look into, most communities eventually go away from this and go into 1 or 2 large 40-yarders.
Mhm.
So you would just access them from the, I guess it would be the south instead of the west. So, you would have to shift, but most communities that have open garbage like that do have some lidded capacity, yes. Especially when we're living on a lake with all the birds.
Yeah, that's most
Eagles and
problems.
crows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens in any foothills community like Bragg Creek or something like that. Because of bears and other wildlife, but it also happens when we have a lot of, they call them vectors or something like that, but they do insist upon lids.
And even actually anything within the community has to be closed contained due to wildlife.
Now, we don't have the bear issue that they would have and stuff, but the lidded would sure reduce a lot of that. And once it's full, and residents would hopefully understand that full means the lid is closed, it's full, don't open up and try to put more into it. So that would then hopefully help with some of the overfilling as well.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank you.
be checking into those two issues on the Friday meeting. Those are my two agenda items.
Happy that you take care of that, I'll do
And I
some on
understand.
my end, we will converge.
I think I understand it as well as most of them, so.
Yeah. So I did have a meeting with the CAO of Motion, November 23rd, let us know. I updated in the newsletter and online. Meeting regarding White Sands Shoreline Assessment Review, which is in your package, so that's in there. November 28th, we sent the newsletter out, grant applications, we've completed the Canada Day grant and the Canada Summer Jobs, so we're looking for 3. Working on the bylaws, so I got my listing there. Had a meeting with the Hall Society on Friday, which was very productive. And I will bring you all the information back in January so you can weigh what we had figured out and where we ended up and how it could affect taxes and what I need approval of. RTM office complications, so I gave you an update on that, and it's coming today.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Joy's got our snow that we got yesterday and it's ramped up and they got 3 houses that can't move today. He says
Okay.
hopefully no later than Monday, he's hoping. Their competitor across the way moved a house early this morning, got as far as Castor and had to stop. So road deterioration.
Well, I can see that. So now we know how to full update there, okay. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. So do I.
Okay, and then I've attached the action list, so that's attached and. Yeah, anything else? Now we have full update.
I'm
So
good.
the office now, Aaron, is Monday?
Hopefully Monday, Matt's saying he will get back to Melissa. But he says it's,
Knew I'd have a headache.
Yeah.
So now we gotta push back all the
yeah,
other
so
services.
I just text Van Electric, I will get a hold of Vortex, and actually I just call him when he gets there. So, yeah,
Most of them say fall. And they kind of just left spots open for us.
frustrating. I knew I shouldn't do that post yesterday.
Well, everything seemed good, but then I should have guessed when it was snowing. But anyway. It happens. January 16th will be the municipal affairs coming up and doing the council training. So it's confirmed. I just have to send out the invite in the calendar.
So, I'll intend on attending that in person. Is it in person or online or just has to be in person? Just so I can,
They're coming out by the sounds of it, because they asked me if we had a whiteboard, they asked me, so they're coming in person.
But
okay,
if he needs to, could we zoom him in through our stuff?
Yes. If we
Okay.
can make anything work.
okay. Well, I'll intend to come out in person, but it's good to know that there's that option if something comes up.
Location somehow, some way.
Somewhere.
We'll be there.
Okay,
So that's the 9th, Melissa,
16th.
the 16th, at what time?
Starting, and I think we had it for 9:30, 10. I'll have to email you guys out all the info once I've finalized it.
Okay,
It'll be almost all day.
okay.
I might be sick that day.
You can be sick, but the other two can't. And that's.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
So FYI, Monday is a high of -15,
Oh, great.
so it's
I
gonna
know.
be cold Monday and Tuesday,
That's what I had heard.
after a nice weekend.
That's what I was hoping now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just more things, sorry.
Did you do a motion for the counselors?
No,
Okay,
we went into the CAO report.
we'll move them all together then.
Actually, we get a motion for all your guys' reports?
Yeah,
Here's the
Food.
I know, Laura said, yeah.
All in favor?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
and then I'm done with my report.
a motion to accept Melissa's CAO report then too?
Yeah,
I'll do that.
okay,
all in
Yeah.
favor?
Yeah,
Yes.
And then we've attached the financials, so, any questions?
so just, I know this is probably the third time I've asked this.
Okay.
So when I look at it, so it says for the period ending November 30th, for this one that I'm on page.
Yes.
47 packet. So the 2024 budget is a 12-month number, the 2024 actual is an 11th-month number.
Yes.
Okay,
And then surplus deficit, that's the surplus that we are working with through the December. So,
right, well, give us the 2024% variance, but yeah.
Yeah,
What I'm looking at, okay,
yeah, so right at the end of November, we had $134,072 still in the budget where we were working with. And that would take into account the requisitions that we have to pay in December, wages, things like that. So at the end of December, when we get all the December billings, that'll really tell us where we're at
okay.
for getting the budget going.
So do you do an exercise each month where you're forecasting, like now it's only 1 month left, but you're forecasting what you think December is and comparing it to that number and. Cause I imagine a lot of expenses are kind of similar each month, but then there are some expenses, I'm sure, that are just like once through the year or something like that, or.
Quarterly, like I can tell you right now that in December, we have our education requisition, another one.
Last one was waste management.
Waste management requisition, so we kind of sit there and we go, okay, 40,000 goes away. We have another,
77 that comes from the school one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
77,000, well, so that'll take that away, so what we kind of have left that we have to really, that's why I'm very critical on. If we don't need it, we don't get it. It can wait. So,
So we're expected to be at the end of the year, end of the fourth quarter, we're expected to be pretty close to
where we budgeted.
budgeted, break even, not over, not under. Okay,
I'm projecting.
okay,
We should have a little bit, we'll be close,
no, yeah,
but yeah,
close is what counts.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd hope, I pray and hope we're not over. So, but again, it's those last billings that come in will really, but I'm constantly running it through my.
okay,
And
is there
then,
any more questions on the financials?
No,
Can we do them all in one?
yes,
Okay, need a motion to accept,
I'll make that motion.
okay, and a seconder,
Okay,
all in favor?
yes,
Thank you. So we're going into correspondence here, so we have the minutes from the Parkland Regional, the Library Board, Emergency Services. Is there any in there that there's some questions on? Except I would like to talk about emerging trends, municipal law for sure. And the allocations, I guess, for the LGFF, them are interesting numbers to look at. If you compare a small village in the province compared to a small summer village in the province, then you can see the comparison of population or whatever assessed value and see how much more they're receiving in a summer village. So that's always been a contentious issue with some summer villages for sure. But I think also I wanted to bring up that emerging trends seminar that's in Calgary and Edmonton, and I'll tell you that was a truly enlightening thing to go to. So maybe if you guys could think about it. The one in Calgary is at the Sheraton Cavalier, and registration is available, and it's February 6th, 2025, and the other one in Edmonton is February 13th, 2025.
is there any counselors interested? It is a very big session. It'll take your municipal issues and tell you the legalities they've run into. So think about it. And then just let us know and we can get you registered or however you do.
I could be interested in doing that, I'd be willing to do that for sure.
I think, in person, if it's possible, if anybody's
Yeah.
interested, there's a lot of networking there as well as, the presentations are, for the most part, top notch. And they apply to all municipalities, not just the big guys. So that's what's been done in the past and it's very good.
Actually, that date might not work for me though, unfortunately. For the Calgary dates anyways.
You can do the Edmonton one if you wish.
No, it's a 1 day thing?
Yep, they're full day sessions.
Do this a day trip on the 13th then too, yeah.
It always falls on the 13th, prior to my daughter's birthday. Always, every time.
I know, what's your thoughts, Dan, or otherwise?
I can't do the 13th, but I could potentially do the 6th. In Calgary. And I think it would be probably worthwhile for someone to attend it.
Is it something, Lauren, do you think it would be good for, have multiple attendees, or if one of us attends, would that be, no ideal?
You know, I personally think it's good, for as many that can attend. At
Okay,
least the past ones I've been to. And if you did go, then you get a room and you get up in the morning and you go to the thing. And it's very, it's good. Like I know I was at one, and the town of Stettler had, I think 5 counselors and their administration was there.
All
Like,
sergeants
there's-
was on another council if it can.
okay,
Yeah, I understand.
And if it's possible, it's possible. If not, if.
I will look at, so we would just, ask administration to register us or just go ahead and register it? What's the process?
It's up to you. If you wish to register and just submit it as your expenses, you can.
Okay.
Or you can just ask us to register you and then you submit in all your other expenses on your timesheet.
Okay. I'll say I'm a strong maybe of that
That's perfect.
and I'll say the same thing.
Perfect.
for the Friday, for the Calgary one. I got it written down.
I'm kind of leaning towards the Calgary one if I can swing it, but I'm just not sure yet. But I'll let you know. Or I'll just register if I'm gonna go and then I'll let you know.
Okay. And then I will also put in your White Sand Shoreline Assessment by CPP Environmental and the briefing note.
Yeah.
So this is the project that was approved, and this is where we're at. And there will be more to come.
Okay.
I guess the other one, Melissa, on that RCMP or leasing formula thing is, so with us being a small municipality, we would have to have a member on a board.
It's the safety. Public safety emergency.
Which one?
That one by Mark House. I'm guessing.
Actually, I thought Cameron was gonna speak on it, but,
I read that slightly different.
Me too, so, I'm not gonna say for sure until I've re-reviewed. Not too sure what size of municipalities really need to be involved in this.
My understanding is that below a certain size was covered by these other regional committees that represented you.
Yes.
And I don't think you had to be on it or not on it. You just, that was what was, if you were larger, you had to have one. If you were smaller, you were just umbrellaed under these bigger groups. But I didn't know, I don't think there was a mandatory component to being on it. I thought it was a voluntary, you could apply to be on these regional.
That's what I get, because the province will appoint up to 15 members, so the province is gonna make the decision.
Yeah. So if you were a small town or a village or something like that, you could say, I really, really wanna be, and you could be, but I don't think there was any requirement to put somebody on these.
No. That's what I got out of it.
I guess we'll find out. I just, it's kind of gray.
That's how I read it, I think.
That's how I read it too, so that's why I just put it in this information that
Yeah.
really it's not up to us. It's gonna be
Nope.
told.
Okay,
Sounds good. Anything else out of the correspondence? Just remove
No.
that information.
are we gonna deal with the permit thing as correspondence, or is that coming some separate?
Which permit?
The 18,000 that we needed to reimburse, or that they needed their deposit return.
Oh,
Where does that get dealt with?
that's already,
Oh,
it's in here.
okay, but we didn't need to discuss that any further. Okay, sorry. I
No.
thought that was correspondence.
That's sometimes a little bit of an issue we have with some of the correspondence that goes out from the ratepayers, is they're always CCing council when it's an administrative.
Right.
And so we dealt with it.
Right.
And we talked to them, and we have the check in here for you guys to sign. So that unfortunately, they hadn't notified us and took part of their deposit back and stuff, so we had a good discussion with them. But it's all here.
Okay, so that's just part of the signing. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I
so sometimes the correspondence you guys will receive in your email. It's a heads up.
Yeah.
But it is administrative, so we handled it right away and it's already here.
okay,
Yeah, if it was needed to come back because there was something that they confirmed they wanted the 5%, that would come back to council. And then you will make the decision on that part.
Right.
okay. And then the only other correspondence I had, I thought was, are we gonna deal with the hall and the water and all of that are under discussion?
That is in my realm. I've had that discussion. New approach is on now, and then we're gonna have a bigger discussion during budget.
Okay, but do we have a protocol to deal with it now?
I have now, yes.
Can we discuss that or is that? Cause we as counselors were getting comments. So my question, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time or place to bring it up, but this is the second time that we've run out of water at an event. And I'm not
Yeah.
looking forward to pointing fingers or anything like that. All I wanna know is what's the resolution, what's the procedure so it doesn't happen a third time? So are we putting something in place and what is that?
And that's the discussion I've had. And yes, it did happen previous. We had it ironed through. There were two, so we had a schedule. For some reason, summer schedule now moved to winter schedule, and now I have to iron through that now. So back to the original. Am I gonna create a policy on it? Yes.
Okay, policy, procedures, way of handling it,
Yes.
filled every Friday, I don't know, but
Yeah.
especially now that we have an office there, they're gonna be using more water, is there something to assure us that this does not happen a third time?
And that's where policy coming for council to approve, so we can get something in more writing. Bigger discussion, a plan, that's coming to budget, because I think we need to look at. I can't give a guarantee that this policy will fix it. Do we have to look farther? Yeah. Which
Yeah,
will have budgetary implications or capital implications.
It certainly has to be looked after, and I know that it's gonna be looked after because we can't leave it the way it is. I mean, that's not good. And Of course, it always happens when, you know, the bookings are on the weekend. So
Yeah.
it's just got to be looked after, period. And it is going to be, yeah.
Yeah,
And in
So
the,
that-
in the
that will be-
meantime,
yes.
in the meantime, like I think it's being already looked after. It's just isn't in the policy, but it is going to be looked after because it's got to be full on the Friday, period. And
Checked on Monday, Thursday, filled every Friday. But if it has to be filled again, you fill it. So now it's you want another double method, instead of the single method strictly Friday, now you're gonna check. And if it makes.
As long as we have a clear process that should eliminate future embarrassment, if you will.
I agree,
Or midnight calls, you know,
tell me about it.
okay, so, well, that's, again, I don't wanna go, we don't need to dive deeper than that, other than what's the policy, and then we can say, okay, was the procedure, policy, whatever you wanna call it, followed? And if not, then we need to deal with that on a disciplinary action or whatever.
And human error and
That's
all,
fine,
yeah, yeah, so you're right. But if we have the policy, at least there's something, we don't, that's one of the things that we have list. There's a lack of policies with clear defined things so that it starts laying out, where are all these costs coming in?
Yeah.
Because we haven't tracked it.
I don't know if it's policy or procedure, but anyway, an operating procedure, operating policy, whatever.
Right,
Okay,
because we're so small, it just becomes a policy and we'll just have you guys walk through it and approve them and we put them into, so that you're aware. Cause you're the ones the citizens call too.
and you, I didn't get a.
Yeah,
Midnight call, midnight emails, yes.
just to throw it out there too, there is some investigation. I've done a little bit already, but on a reader for the tank, so that it is monitored electronically as well. And maybe there's something can be so there's an alarm system that goes to someone's iPhone. This is how much
I'm
is in it.
working on that as part of your.
Most of the alarm systems are a minimum, like, oh, you're low. But I think in this case, we needed to know that we were full. Like, that was more the thing. I mean, if we would have had half a tank, the alarm wouldn't have gone off. And this still might not have been sufficient for the weekend, but anyway, it's something we need to. work on.
Yeah, but I think maybe we do need an alarm so that there is that backup, that if it is human error. And it's 50%, the alarm goes off.
Yeah, maybe that's,
Because human error will always have another factor that we need to be thinking about, right? And with one staff member and weekends, and we have to figure out how can we make sure, this way, if there's that alarm system and it's got a double contact, I can check before
Yeah.
the end of the day.
Okay,
We do better.
hey,
so I guess the next thing is
Now, in motion to accept your correspondence.
oh yeah.
I'm glad you're back.
Everybody's in favor, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I got now, Aaron, we need to go in camera or closed meeting.
Yeah, so we're gonna do this. I'm gonna call you from our phone system. You might have to disconnect Zoom and come back in, I don't know, or if you can use Kathy's phone, I don't know if you're using Kathy's phone now.
No, he's not using it.
No,
Oh, yeah, that's why.
Okay, so I will turn your camera off, mute yourself, we will do the same here. But you're moving into.
We need a
closed-
motion.
Yeah.
And you have to have that it's under what point protection, can you grab that?
So a motion to go in camera,
Yeah, to go into closed
Closed meeting.
meeting
yeah,
and the title, and it has to have a FOIP section or we're in hot water.
yeah, it's basically human resources.
yeah,
It's gonna have to be,
Moving the package, wouldn't it?
Well, it just gives you a general, but not a, which section is this?
Ah.
I think it's 18 is what I think it is.
Individual or public safety?
Yeah,
Because if you're dealing with human resources, labor, it's individual or public safety.
hold on, I'll just. Right there, there we go,
S16 of FOIC.
16.
Yep.
Okay,
Discussion on the employment of individuals.
thank you. S 16, so
I think
move
that's
by,
what it says.
moved by a counselor or mayor to move into closed meeting session for personnel FOIP section S 16.
I think that's.
And then you go human resources personnel.
Human, I said personnel.
Oh, good, okay, sorry.
I said personnel FOIP section S 16.
Okay,
Okay.
So-
At 12:42, so if you want to.
okay, so I am going to.
What do you want me to do?
Do this.
Hang on,
Could you mute and close, turn off your camera, please, and then I will call you on Kathy's cell. All right. I'm unmuting, you do the camera.
Great. Okay, motion.
All right,
Motion.
Who wants to move the motion and move out of closed meeting session for personnel, point section S16 at 1:01.
Sounds like Lauren did that.
you bet, it's too damn late.
And then adjournment, who's gonna move to adjourn it
I can move to adjourn.
at 1:02?
Thanks, Lauren.
Sorry about the long meeting, but whatever. I guess
Yeah.
it's
Wait, the more button.
This one,
More, yeah.
hold on.